Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Elliott?
Present.
Councilmember Camarena?
Present.
Councilmember Marroquin?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter?
Present.
We have a quorum.
If you can please join us by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Marroquin, do you mind leading us, please?
Hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as Councilmember Elliott will lead us in the invocation.
Let's pray. Thank you, Father, again for this great Savior, the Lord Jesus. We thank you for this time we call Easter, and we pray, Father, for peace, Father, all over our country as well as the world as well. We thank you for the many blessings that we do have, the prosperity that we live in, the stability that we live in, the relative peace that we live in. Not take these things for granted, and we pray for help, Father, and wisdom in going forward. All the issues that we face tonight, and to have your wisdom from above, and going forward for what is best for this community. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you to both of you. City Attorney, do you have any reports on closed session?
Madam Mayor, there's no reportable action from closed session. In addition, under legislative items, the city manager will be adding 2 items regarding pending legislation.
Thank you. The City Council welcomes your input. At this time, members of the public may address the City Council of any matter not listed on the posted agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, no action will be taken on any issue brought forth under public comments. We ask that you please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Although you are not required to identify yourself, this information on the speaker slip assists the Mayor Pro Tem that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assist the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. Unless the Mayor Pro Tem extends the time, there is a 3-minute limit to each public presentation. Any information provided on the speaker slip is voluntarily and will be public records. We do have a couple of slips. The first is Peter Rodriguez.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to request permission to extend to 1 minute.
To extend 4 minutes, is that what you're asking for?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the council and members of the audience. The item 1 that I would like to address is I'd like to thank Adriana Nala, Department Head for the Community Service Department, for the completion of Buena Vista Park. I saw it on your Facebook post, and appreciate the hard work from yourself, but also from your staff. That's a beautiful park. I had the opportunity to drive by it the other day, and I also had the opportunity to ride my bike by it. It's a beautiful work of completion. And as we know that Rome is not built in a day, this is a project that was completed started with the previous council and went forward. And that's progress. I also, number 2, I'd like to thank to the 7 fire departments for responding to the Bar Lumber fire. Your hard work, commitment, and dedication is much appreciated. I live 5 blocks away from the fire. So every time I ride my bike, it's like the morning, I see it. A lot of work needs to be done, but unfortunately that fire did occur, but fortunately there were no lives lost. Item 3, on March 18, 2025, in the council hearing meeting, Councilwoman Caminero questioned the long nature Urso restaurant that was pulled from the consent agenda. Your agendas are always prepared and ready for review on Friday before the following meeting. Any question on the consent agenda should have been addressed on Monday instead of shaming a local business that is still standing tall. Businesses locally are struggling throughout the country. corporate, small, doesn't matter. But here in our community and Imperial County, we should be encouraging, not discouraging businesses. And that business, because of your comments, is thriving more than ever. They made their own little coalition, and they're starting May 1st going forward with little, other little small stores are united. Item 4, on March 22nd, the Mayor Pro Tem and yourself, Councilwoman, took a tour downtown. And I read your post. But what was disturbing to me was the lack of information given from a 4.7 million grant that was given to you last May from Assemblyman Garcia. You, Mayor Pro Tem, was also part of that occasion. You were also holding up the check. Instead, you rather point the fingers at previous council members.
Time is up.
That's fair? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to our next speaker, Sophia Marroquin.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My name is Sofia Marroquin Hidalgo. I am a mother to 2 incredible children, both on the autism spectrum. I am here today because I cannot stay silent about the remarks Councilmember Ellett made at the April 1st council meeting, and his recent response to my letter only deepens my concerns. Councilmember Ellett, on that very night, April 1st, 2025, the El Centro City Council honored the Autism Support Group of Imperial County with a proclamation declaring April as Autism Awareness Month and April 2nd as Autism Acceptance Day. It was a night meant to celebrate inclusion, support, and understanding for families like mine. Yet, in the same meeting, you chose to cite RFK Jr. and suggest that the rise in autism diagnoses is a national failure. When I wrote to you about this, I hoped for accountability. Instead, you claimed I misunderstood you and shifted the blame to broader trends, which I find deeply troubling. Yes, autism diagnoses have increased over the past 60 years, but what you fail to acknowledge is the reason why. Decades of research, countless studies by dedicated medical professionals, and the development of diagnostic tools that have helped change lives, including my children's. Both of my kids were diagnosed early, thanks to those advancements, and today they are thriving because of the services and support those tools made possible. Without that progress, they wouldn't be succeeding as they are now. This isn't a tragedy. This is a triumph of science and compassion. Your reference to RFK Jr., who has spread unverified claims linking vaccines to autism, risks undermining that very research and community efforts that groups like the Autism Support Group of Imperial County are working so hard to advance. That same night, local advocates and families were recognized for their commitment to inclusion. Yet your words suggest fear instead of support. As a city council member, your position carries weight. But when it echoes myths instead of facts, it harms vulnerable communities like the one I'm a part of. I'm not here to attack you, Councilmember Ellett. I'm here to ask you to listen. To me, to other parents, to experts, to the Autism Support Group of Imperial County, and to the children who depend on us. I invite you to meet with local leaders like James Gonzalez and the team at ASIC, who are doing incredible work, such as launching a mobile diagnostic unit to reduce wait times for families in need. Let us share the realities of autism, the value of evidence-based research, and why your role should uplift, not alarm our community. My children deserve a community that supports them, not one that fears them. Your words matter. I urge you to use them responsibly and to align with the spirit of that proclamation night, to build a future where families feel seen and valued. Thank you for hearing me today. I hope you'll take this to heart.
Thank you. Now we are going to give a presentation. A certificate of recognition for Madison Gray, 20th Annual Regional Imperial County Spelling Bee. On behalf of myself, Mayor Pro Tem, and our council, we congratulate you on your outstanding achievement. Your dedication and hard work truly paid off. May this victory inspire you to keep striving for greatness. Is Miss Madison Gray here? Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I just want to thank a few people. Mostly my family, my friends, my school, and my band teacher, Mr. Cabrera.
Thank you. We appreciate that. If you could stand right here, we're going to take a picture with the council and I. Thank you. I know.
There you go, right
Thank
smack
you.
in the middle.
And thank you.
Do you have any family
One more,
here?
one
Would you
more,
like
one
to
more.
bring your
Oh, yeah,
family
there's
up?
there's her mom. I think that's her
There we
mom.
go.
No, that's the principal. That's the principal.
There we go.
Okay. Yes. Get a picture of her. Thank you, Emilio.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again, congratulations. That is a nice achievement. Now, an appreciation award presented to Jose Romero, Park Maintenance Work 1, for 15 years of outstanding and dedicated service to the city of El Centro, June 2009 to March 2025, presented by the city of El Centro. Would you like to stand at the podium and say anything?
Yeah.
If you could go to the
After his
microphone.
award.
Or you want to-
He wants his
he's like, he wants his plaque first, you know? Thank you. We appreciate that,
I
Jose.
just want to say thank you to everyone. I was working for 21 years in here, and I'm gonna miss you guys a lot. But now I'm gonna join my family.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. If my colleagues can join, so we can get a picture, please.
Oh,
We
right,
can
right
stand
there.
right there in the middle.
Right there.
Oh, Lucas, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Adriana wanted to say a few words.
Okay. Congratulations again, Jose.
Adriana. did you-
Okay, a consent agenda, any questions? Yes.
I think Adriana wanted to say a few words.
Oh, please do. Excuse me.
And
Sorry about that.
Javier is his direct supervisor.
Oh,
I do
thank
want to
you.
say about Senor Romero, he said 21 years, we said 15 in the plaque. He worked with us in other roles as well in the city. I know he did animal control. I know he worked for building maintenance as well. But honestly, what we'll miss the most is his jovial spirit. If you've seen him around maintaining parks, he always has a nice demeanor. It can be 110 degrees outside and he's still out there, hustling with a shovel with a smile on his face. And I think it just is a testament of the staff of the city of El Centro who work in, day out with this extreme heat that we have. And many of them work outdoors like Senor Romero, and he's given us so much of his life here, but we'll definitely miss his spirit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Joe, even though I've only been your supervisor for like 3 years, but I think I've known you for like 20 or so. Now that we did ourselves, but since you started working at the community center, I always had a positive spirit, like Adriana said, even to the last day at work. I always had a good nature about himself, never complained about, at least not direct to me, about his work. And I know the guys already missed you this week. They were looking for you already. So We are gonna miss you, but we wish you the best with you and your family going forward in your retirement, and good luck, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. We appreciate those kind words. Okay, do we have any questions about our concerns about our consent agenda? May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items 3 through 8, please?
I will motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
I'll second.
Madam City Clerk? Thank you.
Does that include number 9? That's
Number
what
9,
you said.
yeah.
I'm sorry, it says 3 through 8 up here.
After 3.
Correction.
Not 9. It's under.
I'm sorry, 3 to 9. Yes.
3 through 9? Okay.
That was my mistake.
I do apologize. Do we
Councilmember
have to
Marroquin?
read?
No, we're fine.
No, we're
No?
fine.
Okay.
Councilmember Marroquin, I need your
Oh, I'm
vote on
sorry.
that.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, we do have a public comment for number 10 for the public hearing. So we will do the public comment first.
No, we have to
Uh,
wait until they
until
cover
after?
the public hearing.
Okay.
Yes, it's after.
Okay, so we have the public hearing approval for the City of El Centro Community Development Block Grant, the draft for 2025, 2026, one-year action plan. This is a public hearing to approve for the approval of the city for the El Centro Community Development Block Grant. This is going to be presented by Ms. Adriana Nava.
So tonight's meeting regarding CDBG is the last public hearing that we have before we adopt the annual action plan. This culminates into the previous processes that we've discussed in the last couple of meetings. We've selected different projects. We also did a request for proposals to the various public service providers, many of which are online. I know there were some questions regarding some of our public service those who submitted the requests for proposal. Not all of them were selected, and I know that one of them also had some input that she wanted to share regarding what her nonprofit does, and that's Nora, and she's on the line. But I'll just start briefly with the presentation, how much funding is available. As you may recall, the funding available is based on the previous year's estimates, and then what we received, and then program income that we anticipate to receive. This is a conservative number because we don't want to be short, so sometimes it's more, but we're estimating 25,000 for program income. And then as you may recall, we also had some project savings that have accumulated, and we have about $68,000, and so we have allocated that funding as well. So for housing, we have allocated $25,000. We normally do 1 and 2 housing rehabs, and this funding allows us to do some of the other soft costs, including sidewalk in support of the residents, lead-based paint, and asbestos removal. As it relates to public services, these are the recommendations that we had from our previous meeting. So we are recommending $47,250. This is a required aspect of our funding, and then additionally, Catholic Charities, the Senior Nutrition Program, in the amount of $20,000, and then the Homeless Day Center in the amount of $11,468, and then Shore Helpline in the amount of $4,000. As it relates to the different activities, one of the activities is code enforcement that council has prioritized over the last couple of years, improvements to Fraser Field, and this also includes the improvements at the community center. So that amount for city facilities is $346,000. In addition to that, we have the 20% program admin. So if you look at the spreadsheet, it just identifies all of those who also requested funds. You can see down the line that we have whole person care clinic. We didn't recommend, we hadn't worked with them in the past, but we think they also provide a great service. And as we look forward, we would like to, in the future, set aside some funding for that as well. Catholic Charities, Sure Helpline, and then PAL also, there was no funding recommended to PAL. As it relates to public facilities, it's what I've already identified. And as it relates to code enforcement, same. So with that said, I recommend opening the public hearing, and if there is any input from the public or those joining us via Zoom, love to hear from them now. And then if there are no further questions, move forward with the approval of the resolution, which allows us to move forward with our annual action plan and to go out for 30-day public review.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Adriana. We do have one public comment. Peter Rodriguez.
I did review this at home, and I agree with Adriana Nava with the way that things are going. And we got to be balanced with the budget monies that are out there. We just cannot spend more than we don't have. And I think it's balanced and it's going in the right direction. That's my comment for the record.
Thank you. Now to my colleagues. Do you have any council comments? Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the resolution for number 2514?
Mayor
Mayor
Pro Tem.
Pro Tem, I think we have someone that wants to make a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, we
On-
have
I
somebody
think
on
we had asked Nora from Whole Person Care Clinic based on, we had a meeting with Mr. Marty Allett and Ms. Claudia Camarena, and Marty had requested some information on whole person care. And we think it's something that would be beneficial, not just to the council, but the community of some of the services they're offering in El Centro. And so she is on the line. We asked her
I
if she could attend.
apologize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Nora Sarte, and as Adriana mentioned, she asked me to join today to share a little bit about our services and our organization. So we are a nonprofit. Again, our name is Whole Person Care Clinic. We provide various services across different counties, but specifically in El Centro, we have a street medicine team that has been out there for a little over a year and a half now providing services. We recently opened up a recuperative care campus out in Heber. And we have been providing services there since December 26th, so the day after Christmas. And I'm not sure if you guys are all familiar with what recuperative care is, but recuperative care essentially provides a safe and stable environment for those needing a short-term solution to recover from an illness or injury or surgery. Our population usually includes those that are unhoused or at risk with unsuitable living conditions or residing in a living arrangement not conducive for optimal healing. Our recuperative care provides case management, medication management, behavioral health, housing navigation on site, life skills, and social activities. And our street medicine team out in El Centro specifically, they go out and provide services 2 days a week currently. One of the days they set up in front of Catholic Charities, we're partnered with them to provide these services. And a lot of our existing individuals that receive care from us already know, to go look for our team there. But a lot of, most of our referrals actually come from our street medicine team because there's a great need for this service out there. So we also have a sobering center at the same campus that our street medicine team and our recuperative care works out of. And essentially the sobering center is an alternative destination versus taking up an emergency room bed or going to the drunk tank. So I just wanted to share a little bit about our services and open it up for any questions in regard to our services.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yes.
Is Martha? Is that Nora? Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So is it an in-house facility that you have in Heber or something outpatient? What does it look like?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if somebody asked the question. It sounds very far away and I can barely hear.
Yeah, let's see if you're.
Thank you. Nora, it's Marty Ott, council member. Your facility in Heber, is it an in-house, inpatient house, or is it outpatient only? What does it look like?
So it's actually a 24/7, kind of, it's not a shelter, so it's a temporary stay, so temporary housing. So recuperative care starts with 3 months. During those 3 months, we work on like healing and activation and really engaging the client. A lot of our clients could be struggling with behavioral health issues, and so we connect them with behavioral health services. Some of them may be struggling with substance use. And then a second program comes into play called short-term post-hospitalization, and that gives them an extended stay of 6 months. So a total of up to 9 months they can stay at our program, and then with the end goal to get them long-term stable housing. So their internal referral pathways could be street medicine, our sobering center, outreach and engagement. External pathways would be SUD outpatient and residential programs, hospitals. Most of our referrals outside of street medicine come from hospitals like El Centro Regional and Pioneers. And so again, during that 9-month period, we work on getting them stable, whether that's medically, with behavioral health or substance use, and we work on getting them long-term and stable housing. So it's not inpatient or outpatient, it's more kind of a temporary housing situation until we can get them long-term housing.
So it's a temporary housing unit?
It's a facility, yeah, it's a facility, it's temporary housing for them because this isn't obviously their long-term housing, it's recuperative care and short-term.
Yes, right, okay. Okay, thank you. So give me some like examples of your street medicine outreach. I'm just curious.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm just curious what it looks like.
So street medicine, the services that they deliver include healthcare, obviously to the unsheltered. They help access healthcare resources, social services and case management, chronic disease management, adult and pediatric medical care, although most of the time the people that they serve are adults. Prescription assistance, laboratory services, wellness and education, disease prevention, assisting with clothing, medical supplies and hygiene products. And then, of course, if they meet the criteria to come to our recuperative care center or our sobering center, then of course a referral to our program as well. They do wound care, mental health support, and a big part of their job is to prevent hospitalization and avoid obviously costly emergency room visits. Mm-hmm. And then connect them to supportive housing, food, mental health support, and social services, as I mentioned.
That's excellent. It's a long list. Do you have someone there? What are your hours? Do you have someone there all the time? What is that?
So our recuperative care site, it's 24/7. So we have staff there 24/7. Our street medicine team specifically currently only goes out to provide care out in the streets on Mondays and Tuesdays. One of those days, like I said, they set up at Catholic Charities. We are working on expanding their services to 5 days a week. We were actually recently awarded the HAP funding, and so that'll be utilized to expand the services to 5 days a week.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. It sounds like a very interesting service.
Yes, yeah. We are
kind of wraparound services.
That is exactly the goal, wraparound services, and our continuum of care is from street to home. So again, it starts with our street medicine team, and then the long-term stable housing is the end goal there. And we actually have services across other counties as well. We have a recuperative care out in Inland Empire and San Bernardino, and then we have a recuperative care in Long Beach, which is where I'm currently at now. And we have a street medicine team out in Long Beach as well, an urgent care clinic that we're opening up, and a street medicine team out in Carlsbad in San Diego County. So we have services all across different counties.
So I'm also curious what do you do with homeless people that are self-declared homeless?
What do we do with homeless people that are what, I'm sorry?
Well, just they're homeless people, self-declared homeless people. How do you handle them? Where do you send them?
So when they come to a recuperative care program, again, the goal is to get them long-term housing, right? So we work with whatever, if they are needing to, we have case managers that will work on gathering their documentation, whether it's a birth certificate, ID, creating a resume, looking for employment, really securing, finances, whether it's a disability, and then we have housing navigators on site. So the goal is to get them to a point where housing navigators can work on getting them housed. Sometimes, unfortunately, we'll have individuals, we haven't experienced this too much out in Heber, but at our other sites, where they are not, fit to be in the program because maybe they are not following the rules. It is an at-will program, so we can't force them to be there. And unfortunately, sometimes we do have to refer them to other services. But the goal is always to work with them and during the 9-month period that we have, really get them to the point where, they're sober, they're stable, they have finances to be able to maintain their housing. And if they're struggling with behavioral health issues, that we connect them and keep them connected to whether that's, psychiatry appointments or therapy appointments. We also have transportation on site. So our teams actually schedule the appointments for them, whether it's for a PCP or a behavioral health, and we transport them to those appointments as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Nora. I was wondering, you mentioned that you're collaborating with Catholic Charities. Are you by chance also, because you mentioned HAP funding, are you collaborating with the Imperial Valley Continuum of Care as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yes.
So you are working directly with them to provide these services, because I do recall that maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, there was another street medicine program that was trying to start up here, but this one sounds like you have been established and also serving other areas. So I was curious
Correct.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we are working with a continuum of care. I was actually just there, and I presented last week and the week prior, and I've presented there quite a few times actually. But yes, we are working closely with them.
Great.
I'm not sure, the previous street medicine who the organization was, but we have been there for a little over a year and a half now. We started with just 1 day a week. And then for some time we were able to expand to 3 days a week, but because of funding, at that time we didn't have health plan contract. Right now we currently are contracted with Health Net, but we see anybody, whether they have health plan coverage or not, we see everybody. So so we've been providing services now for 2 days for a year and a half.
Alrighty. Great. Alrighty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any more questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Do you have something else to say, Miss Adriana?
No, thank you to Nora and all of the public service recipients who are on the line ready for questions. Aside from that, if we could move forward, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution number 25 through 14?
So I'd like to move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we will move to new business. Number 11.
Before we go on, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, could I just make one more comment? I'm glad to see the El Centro PALs on this list of a $10,000 grant that they're requesting. They were passed over last time we talked about this from the diocese, that we were going to try and find not general funds, but Measure P funds, but this grant, it will cover them. So we're just happy to see that the PALs is not being passed over this time as well. Thank you.
Marty, I don't think, with all due respect, I don't think it was awarded.
No, it wasn't.
It was, we did not award anything.
It was not awarded,
Correct.
sir.
That was the request that they were making.
Okay, that was what they requested.
Yes,
Okay, so that we haven't made up our minds yet. Okay, right.
no.
Well, I'm glad they're on the list.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, our interim city manager will give this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. We did receive a letter from Imperial Valley College, and we actually had that signed. So we're here today to ask that we ratify a letter of support received by my office for a request from Imperial Valley College for a joint appropriations request of $2 million that would be submitted to Senator Alex Padilla's office in collaboration with San Diego and Imperial County's Community Colleges Association. And just a little background, Imperial Valley College District alongside SDI CCCA Partners is seeking $2 million in federal funding to expand workforce development efforts that directly serve Imperial Valley County and the surrounding border region. The 2 million request will strengthen workforce development initiatives across Imperial Valley and San Diego counties, helping to build a more resilient and future-ready region economy. IVC's Superintendent President, Dr. Lenore Johnson, who currently serves as the chair of SDICCCA, has been a driving force behind this initiative and is committed to advancing opportunities for students across the region. The initiative is designed to align the programs with workforce demands in high-growth sectors, such as technology, life sciences, advanced manufacturing, and businesses. So this evening, what we're asking is that we ratify the letter of support.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to ratify a letter of support for Imperial Valley College for a joint request of $2 million that will be submitted to Senator Alex Padilla office in collaboration with the San Diego and Imperial Counties Community College Association?
So I move. I move we accept the resolution.
Seconded.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Now we have a budget update by Andy Heat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. For the record, Andy Heath, financial consultant for the city. What I'd like to do for you tonight is actually go through how the budget for 24-25, the current fiscal year, is shaping up for the city's 4 largest funds, the funds that represent the majority of the city's expenditure base, which would be your general fund, your major P fund, and both of your major enterprise funds for water and wastewater. And then subsequent to that, we're not looking for any action tonight on that. No resolutions or anything like that. But what this mid-year budget update does is kind of gives you an idea of where we think we're going to end the year in those funds, which is a very important factor in determining how your next year's budget is going to be set up. So as part of tonight's presentation, we'll be spending, and I'll get through this as quickly as I can, but we'll be spending some time going through a workshop presentation so I can give to you what finance has been working on, and actually the entire city has been working on for the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, fiscal 25-26, okay? So as part of tonight's presentation, kind of discuss what we did to prepare the mid-year budget update and some of the things that we thought about. We'll go through the mid-year budget update for the 4 funds that I mentioned. Then we'll go into the workshop mode where we're listening feedback from your council. We want to know what you think about some of the things that we're thinking about as a city staff to bring back to you when we do the budget again in May and in June as part of future upcoming meetings that we will have to discuss the budget. So we're looking for that feedback based on what we're thinking about, and you're going to see a lot of new things you haven't seen before tonight, things that are shaping up for the budget. So please feel free we're looking for that comment, okay? Because we want this to be your budget for the city, and we want to know what you think about where we're at so far. As part of the workshop, we'll be going through the forecast updates. So based on, again, on the mid-year presentation you'll see for the general fund and Measure P specifically, we have updated those long-term forecasts. So you know that forecasts have been developed, robust forecasts for both of those funds. And again, as I say every time we present this, those forecasts are only as good as on the day they're presented because things change tomorrow and they especially change several months later. So you're going to see the most updated version of that forecast based on what's happened so far and what is going to happen, what we know is going to happen that we didn't know before next year. Then we'll go through some budget policy considerations and observations. There's a few of those that we'd like to talk about. Budgetary policy recommendations, some of the things we are thinking about actually implementing in the upcoming budget for 25-26, and what the fiscal impact of implementing those budget policy changes is. Then we'll go over at a very high level after working with staff and meeting with all the department heads and division managers in the city. The requested position changes that have, again, these have just been requested. They're not being recommended tonight. They're not part of the budget. They're just out there, but we want to make you aware of what staff is thinking about in terms of needs for the future. Maybe not next year, but for the future, definitely. And then also capital outlays. So not major capital projects that you'll see in the enterprises. We're not going to go through those, but capital outlay. What are some of the things that are needed in terms of equipment, large supplies, those sorts of things. So some of the other projects like in planning, you have a specific plan and you have general plan amendment updates that need to happen. So we're going to talk about those a little bit as well. And then once we get through that workshop, we'll turn it over to you for any comments and observations that you might have that we can take away so that we can prepare this budget and bring it back to you. And then again, what that 25-26 recommended budget will be in terms of next steps between now and the day it's adopted, ultimately adopted in late June, maybe early June of this year. Okay, for the mid-year budget development process, some of the things that we actually did think about was, I'm sure you're aware, we did finish the audit for fiscal 22-23, so that is done. Congratulations to staff for getting that done.
Yes.
We were able to finish the audit and the single audit. And as a result, we now have good numbers that we can actually use to put into that forecast for the general fund and the Major P fund that have been updated. So the audit's done. That's good. We are also in pre-audit mode for fiscal 23-24. So more than likely, by the middle of next month at the latest, our auditors will be coming back and they will be doing the field work for the fiscal 23-24 audit to get that completed and get that underway with a goal of, I believe, June 30th. Is that correct? With June 30th to have that done. So it's pretty aggressive,
Yes.
but we're gonna do our best to get that done in conjunction while we're doing the budget.
Wow.
So you can imagine the workload on finance right now. And then, of course, we did look at all of the fiscal 24-25, the current year's activity to date for the city's 4 major funds. So that's been updated. We did updates to balances expected by the current fiscal year. As I mentioned, one of the precursors that you need going into preparing any budget for any fund for the upcoming year is how much money are we going to start with? What's our fund balance going to be? So we've done that. We did update the forecasts, and then we've also established what's called a preliminary base budget for the coming fiscal year, which is in the forecast that you will see. So all the staff costs have been updated. We went through in finance and actually updated all those for next year, put in the step increases, putting all that for your base staff. Again, no new positions, no less positions, just your base staff. And as you know, we always assume from an expenditure perspective that every one of those authorized positions, which hasn't changed from last year, is assumed filled with caveats, of course, that we'll go through. Okay, looking at the general fund. So this is your mid-year for the general fund. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. In 24-25, your revised budget, which I believe we adopted in December of just a few months ago, said that we would have about 38.7 in revenue and 38.5 million in expenditures. So a couple $100,000 or about 150,000 in surplus. When we put everything together in mid-year and we're looking at the way things are shaping up, we're going to have about 2 million more, 2.25 million more in revenue, and we're going to have about 1.28 million more in expenditures. Okay, so now that $150,000 original surplus that we had with the revised budget is likely to be just over $1 million. So your general fund will experience a surplus in the current year of $1 million, which is consistent with what we've been seeing on an actual basis in years past, ultimately as years are closed out. What are those changes made up of? In the general fund, your revenue, your additions to revenue include higher levels of property taxes and related taxes that are going to be received. So we have received the first payment of what's called a teeter payment from the county, which is the first major payment of secured property tax roll. You can extrapolate how much you're going to get by the end of the year based on that. And based on those extrapolations and adding in all of the other types of property taxes that are impacted, we anticipate the property tax will go up by about $300,000. Sales tax collections are consistent with the most recent forecast that has been put out by these city sales tax consultant, HDL. So about a $250,000 increase there. And then we have a $1.5 million increase in the things that we're calling other revenues. One of the recommendations that I will likely give to the finance department as we are preparing next year's budget and getting that set, is creating single solitary accounts for some of the things that you put in other revenue. Because candidly, having 1.5 million at a minimum in other revenue, which you do, is a lot for other revenue. Okay, auditors don't really like to see that. They'd rather have a specific line item, so you're calling that out and you know what the changes are from year to year. Nonetheless, for the things you do have in other revenue right now, we're anticipating an additional 1.5 million. So that 1.5 million is made up of school resource officer and strike team reimbursements. So the city's been participating in a lot of fire strike teams, as you know, a lot going on there. Those reimbursements on the revenue side, I have to caveat that though, are just to reimburse for overtime increases on the expenditure side. So when we go through the expenditure changes for the general fund, you're going to see higher expenditures, particularly in fire, in the fire department for those strike teams. HID to reimbursements, which is a reimbursement related to the police department, state grants, and some opioid funding, which has been received. So all of these things in the aggregate, when you add them all together, about another $1.5 million more than what was originally budgeted. Okay, these are typically one-timey type things, so it's not really that you would budget for these anyway at the beginning of the year, but as they come in, they typically offset an expenditure or they're additional money that just comes in because you get it on a one-time basis. So that is what the revenue changes are all about. And on the expenditure side, you can see here that personnel services costs are going down by about $487,000. Okay, and they're going down because vacancy savings has been reduced by $1.1 million. Okay, because it's been actually realized. So we have 9 months worth of activity that we've already gone through and realized now. So that original amount of vacancy savings has now accrued itself into personnel costs. Okay, knowing that we budget personnel costs every position full for the entirety of the year. When that doesn't happen, you accrue vacancy savings. So that 1.1 million is the amount of vacancy savings that's been accrued as of 9 months through the fiscal year. Okay. Overtime increase, there's that fire overtime and a little bit for police as well, about $600,000 more in overtime there. And then you have some higher temporary employee salaries in Parks and Rec. And I believe most of that was in the aquatic program there, so which was expected. You have a reduction in the credit for salary savings. So keep in mind on the other side of the equation for salary savings, when we adopt the budget, we anticipate that there's going to be salary savings so that we can help balance the budget, knowing darn well that we are likely to accrue salary savings by the end of the year. Well, we know that we've accrued $1.1 million for the first 9 months or so. Okay, or a little bit less than that. So I have to reduce that out of that credit. So this $1.22 million is that reduction. So now salary savings for the future, where it used to be budgeted at about 12 to 15% of the total amount of salaries, general fund wide, based on the department. Okay, and that number, all that number was, if you recall, was it was computed based on the existing vacancies at the time. Okay, that the city had and the likelihood of whether or not they would be filled. All right. We've gone through now 9 months with that budget, and I can tell you that your public safety departments, police and fire, are on a manhunt, and they're out there looking for people to work, and they are filling these positions. Okay. So as a result, what I've done on the forecast side is I've lowered that vacancy savings from 12 to 15% to 5 to 7%, depending on the department. Okay. This takes all that into account, not just for the current year, but for all future years as well. You have materials, supplies, and operations, an increase of about $535,000 there. Insurance costs went up, and they will continue to go up. We just received the premiums for insurance. That increase in premiums, which I believe is about $300,000 to the city of El Centro for next year, has been built into the forecasted numbers you're going to see tonight. Okay. IT subscription costs, city hall security systems, police professional fees and cameras, parks maintenance, lots of different things going on in non-personal, which is material, supplies, and operations to the tune of about $500,000 additional, more than budgeted. And then you had about $221,000 more in capital and outlay that's being incurred for Buckham Park emergency repairs, a backhoe that was purchased, and furniture and IT equipment. One thing I do want to call out about some of these appropriation increases that are likely, well, they will transpire by the end of the year, is your council at one time or another, since the original budget was adopted, has approved the majority of these through budget amendments that staff is bringing to you for different things that are needed. So it's not like these things are just showing up. Some of them are, because you have to wait till they transpire to see what exactly going to happen. But nonetheless, some of these have come to the council in the past. And please keep in mind that we are going, I'm going to go back here. We are going to a budget now that is likely to generate $1 million in surplus by the end of the year, as opposed to 150,000 when we adopted the budget. Okay, we'll move on to the reserves. These are your reserve levels. So assuming all of that comes to fruition by the end of 3 months from now, in June 30th, 2025, your undesignated reserves in the general fund will be just under $28 million. And then you also have a restricted reserve that is part of the general fund in the audit that is restricted for the 115, Section 115, IRS Section 115 trust money that is held specifically for retirement purposes by PARs. Okay, and we've talked about that. There is on the books, there's 3.8 million. You're going to notice in the later slide that when we add all the interest earnings, it has not been booked for that because it's in a separate fund. I think it's about 4.7 million that's in there now. Okay, so you've got money in your PAR statement. Your general fund reserves will be just under $32 million when you include that. Taking into account, however, just the undesignated portion, not including the PAR's restricted reserve, that 27.9 million represents 70% of your general fund expenditure base. A very prudent number. And to call that out, you've heard that number in the past, but we know that that number is likely to change because of certain circumstances that we'll go through as part of this presentation. Okay, real quickly, Measure P, no changes in revenue. Basically, the only revenue Measure P receives is that sales tax, that transaction sales tax. Expenditures, however, being reduced by about just under $4 million. The majority of these expenditure reductions are just anticipated project carryovers into next year, into 25-26. So ultimately, when the budget is put together for Measure P, which we're starting to do now, and we have a meeting with the Finance Ad Hoc Committee to talk specifically about Measure P and go through some of the things that the department heads are thinking about in terms of how Measure P is going to be used or be recommended to be used to your city council when you consider the budget. All of that will be put in the hopper, and we're going to bring that back, and that will be what Measure P is. However, given the capital projects that are budgeted in Measure P, which are significant, we're not likely to finish all those by the end of the year, so we're anticipating that we're going to save some of that money and actually carry it over into next year. Okay, it will likely be spent, but just not this year. So when you take all that into account, you can see here that that $3.8 million reduction in expenditures is actually predicated on an over budgeting of the police station project costs. So what we did when we put the budget together that was presented to you in December for the current year was we didn't have it booked that we spent $3 million of Measure P funds that were budgeted in 23-24, the last fiscal year. We didn't have it booked. Okay, so when we didn't have it booked, I didn't see it, so I didn't record it. So I carried that $3 million over and put it with the $3 million that you had budgeted for the current year, and had a $6 million budget when you adopted the budget for the police station project. Well, we actually booked that $3 million back in 23-24 as part of the cleanup process to prepare for the audit. So by doing that, I can now lower the budget for the current year from 6 million back to 3. Again, no changes in fund balance or anything like that. It's just where is the money appropriated in which fiscal year. So that's part of that $3.8 million reduction. And then the balance is in some of those parks related capital projects that are likely to be carried over. Again, just some notes on this slide. The 25-26 Measure P funding recommendations will be discussed with the Ad Hoc Finance Committee at a future date, and we have a slide on that. And then Measure P forecasts do assume the continuation for every year in the forecast, which goes through, I think, 29-30. We do continue to assume that the non-personnel costs and capital costs related to police and fire that are budgeted in the general fund will be covered by Measure P. Okay, so that is continued to be assumed because that's what was done in the current fiscal year. Here's what your Measure P fund reserves look like, assuming all that comes to fruition. So you'll still have a little over $7 million available in Measure P at the end of this year. Okay, water fund and the wastewater fund, real quick, about 110,000 more in revenue, and that's just because we anticipate a little bit higher, more interest earnings coming into that fund. That fund has a lot of cash. And then water fund expenditures likely to decrease by about 55,000, so not too much at all when you talk about an $11 million budget. But that reduction is anticipated in capital. That's again likely to carry over to 25, 26. If it's not done this year, it'll likely be done next year, and rebudgeted accordingly. This is what water fund reserves look like. So you have different levels of reserves. Many of these reserves, other than the restricted for debt service reserve, can be combined for all intents and purposes because you're using your water capacity fees and you're using your rate stabilization fees for significant capital projects that you have from year to year. But for whatever reason, it's just not reduced on the accounting side. So what I typically do is just combine all those. The reserve that's restricted for debt service is pursuant to a covenant in your bond agreements that says that you have to have this money set aside in lieu of having an assured guarantee policy for that bond issue itself. So we can't really touch that until you make that last payment, and that's what it's for. But all that other money should be combined. But nonetheless, you do have $26.8 million in reserves. When you take out that debt service reserve, it's about 24.8, 24.7. Very prudent level of reserves in your water fund when you consider that your typical annual operating costs are $10 million. So you've got double the amount in reserves that you have than you have for operating costs. One caveat on that, though, is that many times you need a lot of these reserves for capital projects, for significant capital projects that are required by a permit renewal, and you have no choice but to do them, okay, to keep that. Otherwise, you're going to get a cease and desist from the State Water Control Board, and nobody wants those. So you got to have that money. And that's why you'll find your enterprises need to be well funded, because you just never know what's going to transpire in terms of keeping that water safe to drink and keeping the wastewater clean when it leaves the plant. Okay, wastewater fund, about $1 million increase to revenue. Most of that increase is related to some grant funding that was received from the state that came as a result of being reimbursed for storm damage costs related to the wastewater facility. So that money came back in, so that is $1 million. And then your wastewater fund expenditures plan to decrease by about $865,000. Again, that's just a carryover of capital. So we're trying to get, what are we going to have in the current year? And then ultimately, what are we going to budget for next year? We want to take all that into account without double budgeting anything on either side. There's not a whole lot of fluidity in water or wastewater. And in your wastewater fund balance and working capital, you can see you've got 21.9 million in fund balance by the end of the year, assuming all that takes place. And you have a $9.3 million annual operating cost in the wastewater fund. So again, you have double the amount there as well. But the same goes for capital and wastewater as it does for water. You just never know what you're going to need and when you're going to need. Okay, so let's get into, so that's kind of the mid-year. So what we've just gone through is we've actually given you an idea of where the city's four major funds, General Fund Measure P, water and wastewater, are likely to end this current fiscal year at. What we're going to start with in the bank, basically, so that we can really put our budget together well for the upcoming year. So now we're going to be going through what we're thinking about as we develop the budget for the upcoming year. And the first thing we'll talk about is the updates to the forecasts. So for the forecasts, some of the things we did was, again, we did a full update of all the 25-26 staffing. So we looked at all the base positions in the city and how they're funded. Didn't add any new positions that have been requested, but just went through and determined what those are going to cost. Took into account the step increases and health insurance things, whatever we needed to do to make it for next year. Then we looked at the updated fiscal information again from the audit just completed for 22-23. the 23-24 pre-audit estimate, and the 24-25 mid-year budget recommendation. So all of that is built into the forecast. We do assume that all positions are filled for the remainder of this current fiscal year, and more importantly, for all future fiscal years, keeping in mind that we do have a level of vacancy savings that's built in. And I went over what that is. For next year, it's going to be between 5 and 7%, and for all future years, it will be. Fund balances do include amounts in unassigned general fund. So I did not include that PARS trust fund money in any of the what you're gonna see. That's kind of, you can only use that for one thing, you know. So I don't want to think that you can use that fund balance for anything but retirement. CalPERS costs, both actual and estimated, are taken from the 2024 actuary reports. So when we put the budget together, that data was not in the prior forecast, so it's changed, and unfortunately, it's adversely changed. So it's gotten a little bit worse. It's gotten a little bit more expensive. So all of that is built in. General fund investment in capital and public safety non-personnel, again, as we mentioned earlier, is continued to be funded by Measure P, and that's about $2.113 million on an annual basis. So that is built in. We have updated adjustments that have been made to the cost allocation and workers' compensation funding. So we went through and used the same methodology to allocate certain general fund administrative related costs to both water and wastewater. That hasn't changed, but we've updated it for the costs. And then again, when we put the revised budget together for the current year, we actually lowered the workers' compensation funding, which was significantly overfunded. And we'll be going through that in just a little bit, from an 11% of payroll to 9% of payroll. So, and that is working out wonderfully so far this year. It's right on par, it's right on track, no issues there at all. But when we put the revised budget together, it ended up saving the general fund, I believe, about $300,000 when we did that. So that was a big deal. And forecasts, again, are built conservatively. Okay, they're built conservatively on the revenue side. Never try to get ahead of what we think revenues are going to be. Where'd my presentation go? Oh, there it is. Okay. That was scary. And nothing to talk about. And then on the expenditure side, we never want to be below what we think we're going to spend in expenditures. We always want to, keep that budget where we think it, in a worst case scenario, would be on the expenditure side. So that's conservatively budgeting for revenues and expenditures. The forecast is built that way. These are some of the factors that are built into the forecast, and what I want to, and nothing's really changed here from what you've seen in the past, with the exception of what is in that box with the purple writing in it. Okay, so you may recall when we did the last budget, when we did the revised budget, that labor cost number I think was about 181,000. Now it's 186,000 and change. Okay, reasons for that is because you now have built-in step increases for next year. You now have other increases for PERS increases and those sorts of things that have all impacted that cost of salaries moving into next year. So that is what it's going to cost to provide 1% of payroll fully loaded. Okay, so anything that's impacted by that 1%, which would include retirement or Social Security or anything like that, especially wages, that is the cost for 1% of everybody in the city. So if everybody in the city,
We didn't pay our IT bill, sorry.
this doesn't like me.
Couldn't afford it.
Okay, let's try this again. IT. Okay, so 108, about just under $187,000. Okay, and that amount is ultimately what it would cost to provide 1% of payroll to everybody in the city. If you gave a 2% raise to everybody in the city, it'd be double that. Okay, and that is an ongoing cost. So once you give someone a raise, or the aggregate city a raise, or an bargaining group a raise, that's an ongoing cost. You don't take that away. Okay, so that is in every year in the forecast moving forward. Right now, there is no labor increase built into these forecasts. Nothing, because nothing's approved. Okay, and furthermore, you have a comp survey that's out there right now that will likely be ready in early fall. Okay, that will basically determine where positions should be on a competitive basis when you compare it to an array of cities that have been approved to look at as part of the comp survey. So that is coming, and we're kind of waiting for that. Many of the positions that you'll see later, you can see that I have not recommended at this time there, because the fact of the matter is, when this comp survey is done, ultimately you may have big changes in classifications for what they do, especially for their pay, that will mitigate the need for new positions in the future. So we want to wait and see what happens there before we really recommend anything. There may be a few positions that are recommended with the budget ultimately, but we'll have a rationale for that. But nonetheless, we'll get to that in just a little bit. This is what your forecast now looks like. So the general fund forecast, keeping in mind that, again, over in that left-hand side box, payroll growth in 25-26 next year and beyond is not included. Okay, so there's no payroll growth included. CalPERS costs are included. We know what those are going to be. Health benefit costs are assumed to increase some percentage each year. That's built in, but we just don't know what that payroll growth is because a compensation survey is underway. When you take all of that into account, and also looking at the box in the graph itself, where the updated forecasts, significant expenditure changes include those increases to CalPERS UAL that I mentioned, and more importantly, the insurance increases, all that's built in here, okay, for the future. You can see next year's budget has about $166,000 surplus. So if you take the budget we have today, you make it a base budget, deliver services in the same manner that you're delivering them today, under the same cost scenarios, okay, and you continue to bring in revenue, under the same types of revenue, and you grow them both accordingly, according to assumption factors, that's a base budget. This is what it looks like moving into all the future years, okay? So nothing changes in terms of service delivery. These are pretty much balanced budgets, okay? So you have a $40 million general fund budget, okay? So when you're talking about $166,000 surplus, a $57,000, $90,000, $53,000 deficit, we can find that, okay? We'll find a way to balance that in the budget so that you have a balanced budget. But these aren't big amounts, okay? But you can see in the past what the city has put back into the general fund. Going back to 21-22, we put 3.2 million in surplus back in. 22-23, 3.6 million in surplus back in. 23-24, we're anticipating, 1.6 million. And then with your mid-year now, we're anticipating just over $1 million. So you've got 4 recent years of history that previously showed in prior forecasts that you had a significant systemic deficit. You've actually ended up with a surplus all 4 of those years, okay? With basically no surprises, okay? There's nothing in there that is just way off the charts that is going to cause that, okay? These just transpire. Now, they're getting less and less, okay? But that's just the nature of the beast. But as we go through this, you're going to see that there's some things that are on tap. That's the general fund forecast. This is what PERS costs are going to do, according to the actuary reports that were released in August of last year. You can see this year in 24-25, total PERS costs are going to be about $6.7 million in the general fund. That's expected to grow to $9.1 million by 29-30 on an actuarial basis. Many things impact these PERS costs, okay? And as council members Ellett and Camarena found out a little bit ago when we talked about PERS actuarial reports at length, there are a number of factors that go into determining exactly where both of these types of costs are going to be in the future. The normal cost, which is a percentage of payroll that is paid by active employees or for active employees, and then your UAL costs, which fluctuates every year based on how much CalPERS makes in its portfolio, where it's expected that it will make 6.8% every year in the actuary report, and then what is going on to impact that actuary report itself for things like how much is payroll growth, how long are people living, how much are they making when they retire. All of these things go into this number. What I will tell you is right now, CalPERS, actually there's a committee meeting either yesterday or tomorrow with CalPERS, the CalPERS Finance Committee, where they are going to start introducing what the results of their experience study that they do every 4 years. So every 4 years, CalPERS goes in and they look at the factors that they use to determine what the rates need to be on an actuarial basis built in for the future. They look at things like, okay, we're assuming 2.8% payroll growth, but what has it been? Okay, it's been more than 2.8%. If you look at aggregate statewide raises that have been given in CalPERS plans over the years, last few years, it's been a little bit more than that. So I anticipate that to go up. Well, when you increase the expected raise, or when you increase the expected mortality rate where somebody's living to be older, or where you increase the amount of money that people are getting in their retirement, ultimately when they retire, all of those things adversely impact your future UALs because they're changing the assumptions. Okay, now the assumptions are different. I have never seen an experience study that's done every 4 years create something that's not adverse to your UAL. So I anticipate 2 years from now, based on the experience study that will come out later this year, that 2 years from now, you will see a little addition to your UAL for whatever reasons, and all that will come out. That's not built into this, okay? What is built into this is the current actuarial estimates that CalPERS has in their current reports, which is expected to grow from 6.7 million in the current year to 9.1 million in the last year. But these are built in to those numbers that you've seen. This is what happens to fund balance in the general fund. So this is that $28 million number. You can see that fund balance doesn't fluctuate that much because we again have pretty much balanced budgets into the future. And that fund balance represents about 66 to 70% of the expenditure base over that time, which is very prudent. Again, this doesn't include anything in the PARS trust, which is now 4.59 million. Okay, so we had something that came to the council and was ultimately adopted a little bit ago related to the El Centro Regional Medical Center transfer of assets and the potential use of $6.5 million of the city's funding to effectuate that transfer. That 6.5 million transfer likely will come out of the city's general fund unless another funding source can be found. I believe the 6.5 million is a cap where you had $5 million as part of the transfer and $1.5 million as part of the closing costs and those sorts of things. What it doesn't include is maybe some of the attorney's fees that the city's already incurred. Those things, but those things have been absorbed in the budget as of today, so they're in the numbers that you've already seen, and hopefully there's no big bills beyond that that are going to come up. But that $6.5 million, assuming it does come out of fund balance, okay, for the general fund, which is the last resort, would result in changing your fund balances starting. I pulled it out of 24-25. You can see that $27.9 million number at the end of this year, as anticipated, now becomes 21.4 million. Okay, so it's $6.5 million less. And then every year after that is $6.5 million less because you don't have it anymore. Okay, assuming that happens, which is likely to happen, your fund balance now becomes about 50 to 53% of your expenditure base, which is still a prudent number for a city this size. Okay, having $20 million in fund balance is a good day for the city of El Centro in the general fund. Okay, moving on to Measure P forecast really quick. Again, this is just, there's not a lot going on here other than you have a lot of saving of capital money, which results in surpluses, and then the use of that capital money in a following year, which results in the deficits. So that's why you see those large surpluses, large deficits, one small deficit for this year. But in the future, what we've done again, like in the general fund, is we've created that base. Okay, now there's no staff in Measure P, but we've created a base consistent with what the Public Works Director has put together in a very nice spreadsheet that says this is what we typically fund in Measure P and is likely to be funded in the future. That spreadsheet is likely to form the basis of the conversation with the Finance Ad Hoc Committee, to be updated, to be changed, to be added to, you know, for capital and those sorts of things. So that will definitely be discussed. But based on that, and based on what the future expenditures hold, you do have a systemic surplus in the Measure P fund as of right now. Keeping in mind that with your Measure P fund, this includes the transfer of about $2.2 million in costs related to non-personnel costs in police and fire every year. So even if you continue to do that, you still have about $2 million to $2.5 million in surplus in the future in this fund. And the expenditure base essentially supports police, fire, parks and rec, senior programs, street maintenance and upgrades, economic development. There's a wide array of things that Measure P is currently and has been used for in the past. This is what fund balance looks like. So at the end of this year, about a $7.2 million fund balance. Next year, we have, again, a lot of capital that's built into there. Okay, so there's another, I think, $2 million for the police department that's built into there. We may have found a way to mitigate how much we're taking from Measure P, given that we've made some interest on the bond money, significant interest on the bond money, by having it in the bond fund and not drawing it down. So that may offset some of the need for Measure P, but we'll look at that when we put the budget together and see whether or not that's something we can bring back to the council. But again, in the future, you do have fund balance, and it's at a prudent level. Okay, so that is the forecast. So now we've created the whole forecast, and we've really looked at the general fund. And in the general fund, you know that your reserves, okay, are likely to be this slide with the ECRMC transfer out. The reserves are still prudent, and your budget is likely to be this slide, okay, from a base budget perspective in the general fund. Okay, if we implement the salary survey, and let's just say 5% of salary is aggregate, what's needed? Okay, what does that mean? Not that everybody's going to get a 5% rate, okay, but what does it mean if we add that 5% to the general fund? Well, knowing that each percent costs $187,000, that's going to be about $930,000, okay? So that $930,000 to implement the salary survey overnight, okay, will impact each one of these budgets to the negative of $930,000, all right? So it will come out of these reserves. Okay, not just about 5%. That's just the magical number. Okay, there's no, rhyme or reason to that number. I'm just using that number. So obviously you need to find a way to be able to deal with what might be coming from the compensation survey without having to dip into the almighty reserves. Okay, and use those, because we really never want to use reserves for ongoing expenditures. Reserves are a one-time function when it comes to your expenditures. And unless you know that by using reserves, you might run deficits for a couple years, unless you know that in the out year, which is why we put this forecast together, you are going to have a surplus at some point in time that will offset that cost, then you don't ever want to use reserves to pay for ongoing costs. So what are some of the things that we've been thinking about? And some of the things that we're going to go through now, you have seen in the past, or we have talked about them. We just haven't put them on paper and actually considered what it might look like from a funding perspective if we actually did them. So the first item is elimination of what's called the Unemployment Internal Service Fund. So the current practice with this, so first of all, the city has several internal service funds, and internal service funds are created basically for one reason: to house a type of cost that ultimately is charged out to the funds or departments that use that cost. You typically see them for fleet, okay? So you have a fleet function, and you have a fleet function, internal service fund, where the cost of your mechanics, the cost of car repair, all those sorts of things is built into this fund, and then you charge whoever uses it based on a charge table or based on a transfer in, okay? You also have one for workers' comp. Okay, workers' comp, you pay a fixed premium every year. That premium is making up a number now of $2 million. So that's paid out. Because you're part of a JPA, it doesn't fluctuate much after that. It's a fixed premium for workers' comp. And what you do is you charge by payroll all the people. So every time you do payroll, there's a percentage that's charged based on how much people make that goes in to that fund to offset that cost. So it's charged to the operating funds, and it's funded into the internal service fund to ultimately make that a zero fund. Okay, so it should be an in and an out. End of the day, it's square. Okay, your internal service funds, several of your internal service funds are not square. They're significantly overfunded, and they've been overfunded in the past. Okay, meaning that you have collected monies that has come into these internal service funds based on some methodology, which is typically a rate of payroll. Okay, because it's a good rate to use for what you do, and that money comes in, but what you're paying out is nowhere near that amount. Okay, so you've charged all these funds, wastewater, water, general fund, that have staff in them in the past for this money, but you haven't paid that much out. As a result, the internal service fund has a growing fund balance. Several of them do. Okay, and that's one of the options we're going to talk about on how we can eliminate that. So with the unemployment fund is one of these internal service funds, and the unemployment fund at the current time is funded with 5% of payroll. Okay, so if your payroll on any given payday is $1 million, there's $50,000 that's going into this fund overnight. Okay, when you do your payroll journals, and it's all automatic. So that money then goes to pay for 3 things in this fund. Only 3 things are paid for out of this fund. It's called the Unemployment Internal Service Fund, okay? But it pays for unemployment, which you don't have that much of here, okay? You don't pay. You're self-insured for unemployment. You don't pay a premium. Whatever the bill is that the state sends you, you pay dollar for dollar, okay? So that amount every year is roughly $50,000 to maybe $80,000. Okay, I haven't seen it much higher than that in the past. You also pay for termination payouts. So when people leave the city and you have a payout for somebody that's got a bunch of sick leave or vacation or personal leave, whatever you have, and you pay them out consistent with the bargaining MOU that they have, or the personnel rules that they have, it's paid out of this fund. Okay, and then the final thing that this pays for is the retiree health. Okay, so you pay a component, not the whole thing, but you pay a portion of retiree health consistent with the number of years people were here and whatever that benefit is as provided by the city, consistent with an MOU typically. That is also paid out of here, and that amounts to about $200,000 a year. Okay, so at the present time, this fund is bringing in just over $1 million annually. Okay, and the costs that are being paid out of this fund typically don't exceed $400,000. Okay, so it's very overfunded. On top of that, one of the costs, retiree health payments, can be entirely paid for by another mechanism the city has in place, which is your Section 115 trust that you have specifically for retirement. Okay, that trust fund, similar to the PARS trust fund that's in the general fund presentation, the OPEB trust fund, the Retiree Health Benefit Trust Fund, has $11.5 million in it. And your liability, as actuarially determined right now, is only about $7 million. So you're $4.5 million overfunded for your OPEB liability, okay? And the issue is, once you put it in this Section 115 trust, it can only be used for that purpose. It can't be transferred out, and it can't be used for any other purpose. So into perpetuity, I think you're going to have plenty of money to pay for retiree health out of this Section 115 trust that you very prudently established several years ago, a long time ago, okay? So all of these things are in motion, okay? So what we're recommending is eliminating this unemployment internal service fund, not doing this 5% of payroll anymore. Overnight, that means the general fund in 1 year will not be transferring $800,000 to this fund, okay, overnight for the whole period of a year. And then the balance will come from water and wastewater. It will mean that the termination payouts, which will still need to be paid, will likely be paid from, well, they'll need to be paid from somewhere else, okay? And what many other cities do is they just pay these payouts out of the operating budget for whatever department they're in, okay? And when they're, because you never know when people are going to retire. If you do know when they're retired, you can budget for it. But many times you don't, and when you don't know, you can just bring it back at mid-year, make the adjustment, say what it's for. There's not much you can do about it. It's a guaranteed benefit to the employee, and it's going to be paid out anyway. Okay, but add that to the operating budget rather than socking the money away and then just paying it as it happens. Fund the self-insurance employment claims, self-insured unemployment claims, which are about 50 to 80,000 a year at the most. Again, from operating budgets. So if someone goes on unemployment and you get a bill from the state that says, police officer ABC was out on declared unemployment, got 7 weeks of pay for $4,000. Charge the police department budget the $4,000 in an unemployment line, so you transparently know what it is. And again, just like the termination payout, you deal with that. Or what some other cities do is they actually have a budget in a citywide budget or a non-departmental budget that is specific to unemployment. So every year as part of the base budget, you're actually budgeting $50,000 that you think will transpire in unemployment. If it doesn't, it just drops the fund balance the next year. But every year you're budgeting that to be able to pay for it. So you don't have to do a budget amendment, ultimately. Fund the retiree health, again, using the Section 115 trust, which you have $11.5 million in right now. Okay. And then go through this fund and determine how much you have in overfunding, which we anticipate is about $1.4 million. Okay, so at the end of the day, when you do all this, this fund's still going to have $1.4 million in it that's been overfunded from years past, including the current year, and refund that back to the appropriate funds that paid it, okay, on a one-time basis. So that's $1.4 million that's now going to come back, a portion of which is going to come back to the general fund. So by making this policy change overnight, you increased the surplus in the general fund by $800,000, and you added I think it's 1.2 million for this fund in one-time money to the bottom line for future uses, future projects, future one-time uses. That's recommendation number 1. Okay. Recommendation number 2. Use of PAR Section 115 trust to fund a portion of the CalPERS unfunded liability. Okay. So we mentioned that there's 4.5 million dollars in this fund at the present time. So that amount, under current practice, that CalPERS unfunded liability, and you saw that graph where it's projected to go up, is currently paid on a pay-as-you-go basis. So meaning whatever bill we get for CalPERS, we get an annual bill, and if you pay it up front, which is typically millions of dollars, okay? If you pay it all up front, you get a 3.25% discount, okay? Than if you paid it monthly, okay? So this city always pays it up front. So it's saving what it can on the UAL. Doesn't amount to much, but it amounts to something that you're not having to come up with. So that amount is paid on a pay-as-you-go basis. When we get the bill, we pay it. And the bill is a fixed bill. We already know what next year's cost is going to be, and that's already built in. The CalPERS unfunded liability costs, again, are projected to increase $2.4 million between today and 29/30. That's in the actuary reports. That's on that graph you saw. Higher CalPERS unfunded liability costs are typically funded with discretionary revenues from the operating budget. Now, what does this mean? Okay, this means that as your CalPERS costs go up disproportionately to your revenue increase, your council is going to need to make choices about how you fund those CalPERS costs in lieu of another cost. Okay, what aren't you going to do somewhere else? What capital project aren't you going to do? What position aren't you going to add? Because you don't have a choice in paying CalPERS costs. You have to pay them, including this unfunded liability. So you're stuck behind the 8 ball in a lot of cases when these CalPERS costs go way up. So what are we recommending? Fund a portion of the CalPERS UAL using the Section 115 trust, which you currently have about $4.6 million in. And what we are recommending is for the 5 years, future years in the forecast, 25-26 through 29-30, we're recommending that we add in to that forecast, and more importantly, add in as next part of next year's budget, the use of $250,000 of this money towards that unfunded liability. Okay, doesn't come close to the $400,000 that we know it's going up each year, but it's something. Okay, and it prevents us having to use operating money that would otherwise be used for other services to the community to fund that CalPERS cost. So we're recommending the $250,000 be used from the Section 115 cuts each year. So basically your 4.6 million will be 1.25 million left, so you'll still have 3.3 million in the bank at the end of that 5-year period, plus interest. Okay, next budgetary policy change. Redistribute overfunded portion of internal service funds back to the applicable funds. Okay, so I mentioned that there were several internal service funds that have too much funding in them. Okay, so over several years, these funds have charged operating funds amounts in excess of annual funding requirements. We went through that. And those funds consist of the workers' compensation, unemployment, health benefits, and a fund called GASB 45, and I'm really not quite sure what that's for. It's never changed, and it's just there. And if we haven't used it by now, we're not going to use it. Okay, so it's got $45,000 in it. When you add all that up, it's about 8.5 million. Okay. This is $8.5 million in 4 different funds that we can actually move back the funds from which it came without any adverse impact on the city whatsoever. Okay. Of that 8.5 million, when you do the math and you just try to figure out exactly how much the general fund gave versus other funds, it's about 6.9 million. Okay. So that 6.9 million will be added back to fund balance in the general fund and be available for one-time purposes that might come up in the future in any given year. So we are recommending that although all that funding be redistributed back to the applicable funds, which represents one-time funding. And then more importantly, for the internal service funds that remain in place, they need to be analyzed each year, like we're doing now with the workers' comp fund when we made that change in the current budget year. They need to be analyzed to determine exactly what that charge table needs to look like so that we can keep it as close to zero as possible. It's prudent to have a little bit of money in maybe a couple of internal service funds like the health one. So I didn't take all the money out of there. I'm not recommending to take it all out because sometimes things happen in the health plan. But even today, you know what your health costs are. Okay, you're not self-funded anymore for health. Okay, you know what your health costs are. You charge that premium through payroll to both the employee portion and the employer portion, dollar for dollar. And when we looked at that yesterday and today on what's going on in the general ledger, they're about equal for this year. So what's coming in is going out. Okay, so there's really no change. So that money is available in the health fund, and that's one of the biggest ones at $3.3 million. Okay, so now those are the recommended changes. So what does it mean now to the general fund in terms of what is our reset for the starting point on when we're putting the budget together for 25-26? So what this graph is showing is it's showing that original surplus as adjusted when we did all the mid-year updates and we went trued up the audited numbers and the estimated numbers for 23-24. And that's where you're getting the 1.14 million for the mid-year for the current year. And then all those other surpluses and deficits, which were minimal, they were basically balanced for future years. We're adding to that the impacts for eliminating the unemployment internal service fund, which currently funds 5% of payroll every year, year after year. When we take that out, payroll is going to go down by $839,000. Okay, so that gets added back. And then if we use the CalPERS UAL in lieu of using operating funds in the general fund, or the CalPERS trust fund, in lieu of using operating funds in the general fund to pay the UAL, we're adding $250,000 back for those 5 years starting next year. So now you can see that first bold line where it says updated general fund surplus deficit. That's what they are now. Now, instead of having basically balanced budgets in the future, you've got an extra $1 million on top of that for those 2 changes. Okay. In addition, I've added in the one-time funding that's being made available by eliminating the overfunding and transferring it back into the internal service funds for 6.87 million. So you've got that going on. What I did want to call out here is something that I just found out late last night when I got a call from a colleague of mine at a county that works in the County Audit Controller's Office. And we were talking about how you might be able to use more of the funding in the Section 115 trust that you have for OPEB, which is significantly high. at $11.5 million and overfunded for what your liability really is. And I said, Andy, how do we make this work? So there's something called, I'm not going to get too technical here, but there's something called an implicit subsidy that is charged to the city indirectly as part of existing employer health costs, okay, for active employees, where that implicit subsidy that's in the actuary report, and it's about $100,000 a year, okay, not directly charged, it's just part of what you currently pay, but it's implied, it's implicit, that amount is basically subsidizing keeping retiree health rates lower than what they otherwise would be, okay? You're also able to use the OPEB trust to pay for that as well. So these numbers could get better by another $100,000 once we figure out exactly, the legality of that and that it actually can be done. But the county that I talked to, they are doing it, and it's millions a year that they're doing it for. So I'm pretty assured that we'll be able to do it. So just wanted to call that out, and I would have created a slide for that, but I just found that out hours ago. Okay, so taking all of that into account again, what does that mean to reserves? Okay, so this is what happens with reserves. So at the end of this year, it's anticipated that we're going to have about 21.4 million in reserves, and that takes into account paying $6.5 million for ECRMC. Okay, so it takes the starting reserve balance, adds the $1.1 million surplus that we talked about as part of mid-year, subtracts the $6.5 million potential payout for the asset transfer to arrive at 21.4. But then when you add in all those surpluses that we just talked about, based on the budget changes, and furthermore, you add in the one-time money that's available if we move the overfunding from the ISFs, internal service funds, you can see now your reserves grow back to $29-30 million, okay, which is 73 to 79% of your budget, which is extremely, very prudent, okay? You have sustained surpluses for each year in the forecast, again, based on the given set of assumptions we went over. The payment for ECRMC is out there and built in here. And then fund balance is 74 to 79%. Extremely good. Okay, last section. And I think I'm doing this a little bit quicker than I thought I would, so that's good. Last section we'll talk about is preliminary position requests and some of the capital outlay requests that have been requested by staff in the meetings that we had with staff. Again, on the next two slides, the information you're going to see is not being recommended at this point. We're not asking for council to approve any of these positions or any of the capital that you're going to see, but more so we're looking for feedback on what's important to you, what you think we should be thinking about as part of the budget moving forward, so that ultimately when we bring back a budget, we've taken everything into account, into consideration, and we brought it back in a fully comprehensive recommended budget for your ultimate approval. This information is being presented also in the context of what I just showed you, that if your council were to approve, and based on conversation tonight, some of the changes that we've made to budgetary policy, where we do things a little bit differently, you're going to have the fund balances and the surpluses that we showed you on those two graphs. For personnel requests, what I've done is I've given you the net number of new positions that have been requested, and this is for the general fund. So you have 12.8 FTE net that have been requested. You see a lot of departments there with cost, but that have a zero in the net. Basically, those departments are asking for the reclassification of one position to another. So maybe it's a reclassification from a maintenance worker to a lead maintenance worker. No new position, just a reclassification based on what that position might currently be doing. When you add all that up, those 12.8 positions would cost the city about an additional 1.84 million into the general fund. Okay, so again, position request notes, just some of the changes, position changes with a zero net. Our reclassifications, advancement in steps beyond the normal one-step increase, maybe it's a two-step increase, temporary to full-time and temporary to full-time. So that's all been accounted for. Police positions, just because they have 4 new positions, just under $700,000. Unfreezing a commander position, addition of lieutenant, addition of an executive assistant, and then addition of an evidence technician 2. Building regulation, addition of a secretarial assistant, which is partially funded by CDBG, and that's why you see the 0.6 there, because 40% of the funding would come from CDBG. Engineering, addition of a project manager, partially funded by Parks. In Parks, Parks Maintenance Worker 2 for downtown cleanup, community center, addition of a secretarial assistant. And then in the library, unfreezing the library assistant and an addition of an array of other positions that are all different, 5 of those. So you can see out of all of these departments, basically the police department and the library department, main library, are asking for the preponderance of the positions that are requested at this point in terms of cost. But again, just for reference right now, this is what's out there. This is what we know about. This is what we've had conversations about with staff. And we're going to be putting all this in the hopper and bringing back to you a budget that is consistent with your desires and ultimately what's recommended as a whole for the city. Capital. Okay, capital is a little bit different. So capital outlay. What I've done here, and this is just a general fund capital outlay, and the items that are listed are the items that are basically anticipated to cost more than $10,000 by item. You can see that I've given you the cost and I've given you what it's for. And on the source side, you see GF, that stands for general fund, okay, which means the general fund is likely to pay for that. Where you see MPF, that's the major P fund, okay. Where you see SLESF, that's a supplemental law enforcement fund, which is your SLEASE money, your COPS money that you get every year, which has a good fund balance in it right now. Where you see gas tax, that's your gas tax fund, okay? And keep in mind, gas tax can pay for virtually anything related to streets, including capital costs, okay, and outlay costs. So your gas tax fund, looking at it today, has about $1 million fund balance in it that's been carrying from year to year to year. So I would highly recommend if you buy anything for the streets in terms of capital that you use your gas tax fund in lieu of using general fund money for that. Total outlay request again, just under $2 million. One of the things, so on the list that you got in your packet, in your agenda packet, there's other items in there that are less than 10,000. All of those added up together about 144,000. Many of those items are what I would typically put in a budget as a base budget requirement. So in other words, the police department and the fire department, for example, they're always going to ask for different things that they need. That's just the nature of their business. They need new tools. They need upgraded tools. They need, fire department, they're in a house, okay? And they need stuff to live with and stuff to live in and all of that. So they're always going to have a need for things that are capital. So what I typically do with the public safety departments is I build in a base budget, okay? Meaning from year to year, I'm going to anticipate that they're going to spend X. So it might be 50, might be $100,000. And that's going to be built in so that we don't have to play the game of trying to find funding for at least $50,000 or $100,000 of that every year, year after year after year, okay? So I'm recommending that, some of these departments, most likely the public safety departments, probably your parks department, and maybe a couple of others do have a base budget. And when we go back and actually put the budget together for your ultimate approval, we'll call out where we're doing that and why we're doing that, okay? But having this list is a huge help in determining where those needs are and maybe why they should be recommended. Some requests could be funded by other sources other than the general fund, and I've indicated that here. Again, haven't vetted these out yet, but just in going through them, it's anticipated that many of these requests, to the extent they're recommended and ultimately approved, can be funded by things like the Supplemental Law Enforcement Fund or the Gas Tax Fund. Creating that general outlay is maybe necessary. And then what's not in this list, and something I do want to call out, is that you have potential planning needs that are not included that have general plan updates. So you may need to come back ultimately and update your general plan for the noise, open space, and safety elements, which could cost up to $200,000. And then we talked to Community Development Director about the East El Centro specific plan, that could cost up to $550,000. Typically, these things are general fund activities, so these may be on tap in the future. We'll vet those out a little bit more on whether or not they're recommended. But those are the types of things that may be prudent for use of that one-time money that we're now going to be putting back in the general fund from all the changes that we're going to make on a budgetary basis. And again, none of this is recommended at this point, okay? It's just put out there for discussion purposes. Okay, wow, this is the last slide. Okay, so next steps in the 25-26 budget development process. So again, based on everything that you've seen and based on where we're at today and based on some of the things we have left to do, more meetings with departments, more vetting out of what exactly is going to be needed. Looking at all the other funds in the city, there's minor funds. And the reason why we're not talking about those tonight is because those funds can only be used for very specific things, okay? And ultimately, when we do the budget, we're going to talk about them, okay? But tonight, we don't really need direction on that so much because you can only spend that money on certain purposes. But what we will bring back is a discussion that we need to have with the Ad hoc Finance Committee meeting about Measure P. That's likely to be held in May sometime. The development of the 25-26 preliminary general fund and Measure P fund budget. So again, those are two of the budgets with the largest amount of activity in them. It's not enterprise related. I would like to come back after we start vetting this out and having more conversations with the city manager and the department heads based on your feedback tonight, actually come back to you with a hypothetical general fund and Measure P fund budget on what it looks like before you actually see it and adopt it with the recommended budget. So that may be another opportunity for a workshop or just digesting it and then giving more feedback. And again, that'll be based on what comes out tonight and then further follow up with citywide department heads and division managers. And then ultimately a consideration of the 25-26 recommended budget with a public hearing in June, whether it be the first meeting or second meeting in June or a special meeting for that matter, remains to be seen. But we're trying to not fast track this, but get this done. Get this done timely, get it done completely, and get it done coherently so that your council is able to think about what you want in this budget, react to staff about what we need to be thinking about so that ultimately when we bring the recommended budget back to you, it's more pro forma than it has been in the past. So with that, I'm going to stop and we will be happy to answer any questions you might have or entertain any ideas you might have about what we're thinking about that might be wrong or what we should be thinking about that we haven't brought up. I'll stop there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We thank you for that. Before I move to the direction of the council, we do have a public comment. So I don't know if they wanna see what Mr. Rodriguez has to say first before we
The
go on.
public comment on Andy's presentation?
Yes.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Heath, on your presentation. It was well done, and to the council, like you guys, I'm a fiscal conservative. You have a budget. I think he gave you the playbook, pretty clear, crystal clear, and I did read the backup data on this. I'm very familiar with some of the language and the numbers he was giving. I do know that down the road, it's already out there, there's a grant for lighting with ID for your parks. You guys could pursue instead of spending your budgetary general fund money. I know that even though they did a rollback for residential homes, there's no talk about any rollback or giving back your ECA, you guys pay for the light bill, to the cities. And I think that's something that the council and the city manager should explore, not for me to explore because that's your job to do. But like I said, the presentation was well done. He did give you a playbook that's pretty, in my book, simple to follow. And some of the numbers were very good, trajectory wise. A lot of cities in Imperial County would like to have those numbers, and they don't. Okay, we're actually the economic crown jewel of the valley because of the business that we have and all the corporate business we have in this city. Unlike some of the smaller cities, don't have the Walmarts other than Brawley and Calexico. But other than that, they just don't have the extra like a mall. And that's just the way it is. So you should be blessed with the numbers that you have fiscally for your decisions you have to make down the road with staffing needs. And that's the decisions you guys need to make. But it was a great presentation. Well informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
May I make a comment too?
Yes.
Yes, or maybe just, Mr. Heath, I was just, I was thinking about the current climate of the nation in terms of, where we're going with, the tariffs and so on, and a possible recession. I know that you're very conservative when you develop, the budget and your estimates. Did you take that into consideration that?
It's a great observation, okay? And this is one of the reasons why I point out the need for that forecast and the need to develop it, as you mentioned, conservatively. With that forecast, though, you get that reserve chart, okay, where you have the reserves that you see from year to year, okay? Your reserves are very prudent, okay? At a minimum, they're 50% of your general fund expenditure base, okay? At a maximum, if we do some of the policy changes that we're talking about and we implement them, it's almost 80% of your expenditure base. The extent of recession were to occur or a downturn in the economy, I'm not sure if there's going to be a recession, but will there be a stagnation? I think so.
We could
Okay, I
weather.
think we're already seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay, and because of that, we have time because our reserves are at a level where it buys us time to make the necessary changes over the next couple of years if we need to, watching what happens with this. And this is another reason we need to update this forecast as frequently as possible with real data, with real-time information, so that your council can make these decisions. Adding a bunch of positions, adding a lot of capital, even if it's on a one-time basis, takes away from your surpluses and it lowers your fund balance, ultimately, if you use that, okay? So that all needs to be put in the hopper and mixed up. And ultimately what's regurgitated will come back to you as hopefully a well thought out budget that considers the fact that there may be a downturn in the economy.
I was, I was thinking about as you were speaking, my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back. I'm sorry. I hate it when that happens to me. I have too many things going through my head, and then I was, and it was along those lines, but it'll come back to me.
Okay.
And I'll ask. Okay. Sorry.
So question, Andy, you need to come back then, our team starts to need working on turning these recommendations into resolutions so we can enact these and move on.
I think that most of the recommendations that are before you tonight can be adopted as part of the budget resolution when we bring the budget back, because what we'll do is we'll
In
make
June,
changes. I don't know if you have budgetary policies per se that are adopted by resolution. If you do, we will change those, and yes, that will be required. But typically, what I would do in this case is build, and you're going to have to adopt the resolution or adopt the budget by resolution. Okay, so that resolution will include whereas, and all that will talk about this stuff that we're asking for. So that resolution will approve the budget with those changes.
When do you anticipate that? I mean, before June?
No, it'll come with the budget. I mean,
Okay.
if based on the conversation that we get from the council tonight, if you think we're going in the right direction
Yes.
with some of the things that we're considering, we're going to build them in.
Yeah, I certainly believe that is obviously the way to go to help to use this, to ease our general fund budget and to preserve our P fund budget as well with using these other things that are available to us that you found. So I think we need to move ahead, obviously, and, making these into, building them into our budget for next year.
Right.
So we do need like recommendation, or do you need direction?
Need
It's
a
just
motion.
feedback.
That's a big help right there.
It's
Okay.
only for
Yeah.
discussion.
Yep.
This
Okay.
is just for
Just
discussion.
discussion.
There's no
Yeah.
action
Okay.
required on this item.
I do have a question, and I want to let everybody know that I appreciate the hard work. I know so much goes
Yes.
into it. I am not a numbers person, so
Mhm.
my respect to all of you, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions because I'm new and because I need to really understand what I'm hearing. So just as far as directions, so the information that you gave me here, I heard repeatedly about, it did not include any type of employee raises. Does it include, and I think it's no, but I'm going to ask, does it include any type of, I don't know if it'd be a reclass or from temporary employees into full-time employees for those that warrant a full-time position, aside from those that are
Right.
summer and so forth?
Only in the ones that were brought back by the departments as part of the conversation. I think that is that we have with the department heads. That's a deeper conversation I think we need to have, recognizing that particularly in the Parks Department, there are a significant amount of temporary employees that each year might exceed the temporary threshold. And ultimately, the city's going to be paying CalPERS for them anyway, once they exceed that 960-hour, 1,000-hour threshold, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
it's 1,000
So
hours.
we're covering that cost, okay? But to the extent the director wants to ultimately reframe those positions and call them what they are, which is maybe part-time benefited or full-time employees from temporary, we'll build all that in. And that is a conversation that needs to be had. You have a significant number of these folks. Typically, one thing I do is you have a set number of people that are typically always with the city. They'll be budgeted, okay? So those positions will be budgeted. And then you have seasonal help that ebbs and flows depending on what's going on, whether it's summer, whether it's whatever's going on.
Right.
That budget might be just a static base budget, okay, for true temporary employees where we determine what that costs. And we're having these conversations. We determine how much that is. If it's $100,000 that you need to fund X, Y, and Z, show me the math. Let's work it out. Let's add up all the costs and see what it's going to be. And then that will be in a base that you will ultimately approve. So yes, that will be a topic of conversation when we bring back the ultimate budget.
Yeah, and I think it's very, very important because my understanding is we have a number of people that obviously have surpassed those numbers significantly. And
Right.
I think it's important that those people be compensated as such for the hours that they work. I just can't imagine working repeatedly and not being able to earn time or take, days off. And it's very sad that it's been allowed so long. So the other question I have is about the wage, the comp study.
Mhm.
So all the numbers that you showed us right now, they have absolutely no increases to anybody
No.
except the 186 now. That is just a figurative reference for us if we're going to go, when we go ahead and begin to give. Okay, so would it be possible to get some type of numbers that would show that? Because, and again,
Yes.
I am new in this arena,
Yeah.
but I always believe that from my previous experience, that it's important to be able to take the individuals into consideration at this point and not as an afterthought. That at sometimes, and though it may not be appear that that may not be the intentional action, but it's perceived sometimes as such. And I think that if it's possible to be able to work that in now and then be able to look at the study to see how far we are, because with my understanding with the increase in minimum wage and so forth, we may have some people that might be right at minimum wage
Right.
and working 15 years here.
So because the comp study isn't scheduled to be completed until probably early fall, right? Somewhere right around there. So, we're not going to have the true numbers, the done numbers until that time, which will be subsequent to the adoption of this budget at some point. I think what I've done in the past in those cases is I put in a placeholder called a labor placeholder, where you put it in budgetarily, it's an assumption. Okay, it's not a given or anything like that. It's just we think labor will be this. Okay, and to come up with that number, I think the human resources director and finance can have a conversation with your labor negotiator, Patrick Clark, and ultimately with Shelley, the individual that's putting together the comp study, to determine maybe where she's seen things go without letting any information out, obviously, before the council sees it, and then ultimately approves it. But to get an idea of where things might be going. So if it is 5%, maybe we can put that in as a placeholder. If it's 7, we can put that in as a placeholder. And what does that mean to the grand scheme of things? But yeah, I think that's a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could add something to Mr. Heath's response to Councilmember Camarena question regarding the temporary employees. That's actually something that we did speak to the Human Resources Director and all the department heads. And you're absolutely right. You look at the list of temporary employees and some of them have far exceeded the amount allowed as far as hours. And some of them have been around for a while. And you're right. It's if they've been here that long, then it's obviously that person or that position is needed. So yeah, they're all the department heads are definitely looking at that, and we'll be presenting
Thank
that
you.
as well.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, colleagues? No. You did well, sir. Thank you.
Are we done?
Yeah.
I think
Well, I have
so.
one more, just one more real
Okay.
quick. So the list of equipment and positions that are not recommended at this time, towards the end,
What you see, what's included in your packet is everything we
Everything.
have from the department heads.
everything,
Yeah.
okay, in the
Yep,
packet.
yep.
Okay,
But
not
none of it's
necessarily the
recommended.
screen, okay.
Okay, none of it's recommended.
So my question is, what's the next step in implementing these suggestions that you brought up tonight for augmenting our budget?
What we're going to do now is we're going to go back and we're going to assume that what we heard tonight, which is you like the idea of doing the budgetary policy changes that we talked about tonight. I'm going to put all those in I'm going to hard code all those into the forecast. Okay. So that we have the numbers that you're seeing on an ongoing basis. And that's just going to be the reality that we're going to assume. For approval purposes, you will approve that as part of the budget when we bring it back to you, because it will be part of the approving resolution. And we'll ask for that
Great.
specifically.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Again, I want to echo Claudia Camarena's message. Thank you so much for the finance department working so hard to get us up to speed. We're working on it. We're not quite there, but we're really working on it.
They
So
are
thank you
working
guys
very
very
hard.
much.
I will tell you that.
And if I could add as well to that, I see Andy and Liz and Miguel and all other staff and all the department heads every day pushing those numbers. And when they meet, I mean, I can tell you the conversations are very thorough, and it's just not that easy just to ask for position. It's scrutinized and why is it needed? And everyone here, Andy, staff, all the department heads, they're doing a tremendous job. So thank you.
Yes.
You are.
Thank you.
Thank you to
And-
all of you.
Yeah, I'd
Yes,
just like to
thank
say
you.
also that I don't, I see what's not recommended and it does hurt me because I know everything's needed for a reason. And just to be able to make sure we can move some of those maybe one-time projects and all that stuff to
Mhm.
make it as possible as, to make it possible, and I know that sometimes we're not going to get everything we want the first time, but if we can gradually be able to fill that, because it's very important for not just the city, but the department heads and the employees.
Very good. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
very
Andy.
much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
To you, the finance team, to all of our department heads, it definitely takes a strong
Yes.
team. We appreciate
Yes.
all of you. Okay, moving on to discussion and any necessary action regarding the approval of extension of the CR&R franchise agreement for the solid waste handling and disposal. This presentation is going to be given by Abraham Campos.
All right, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and council members. What a great presentation from finance here, and maybe I can add on Andy's, maybe a clarification there on the not recommended at this time. It's not recommended at this time, if I'm
Right.
understanding it correctly. Pending further negotiation. It's
Yes.
not that they're saying no.
No, exactly.
Find a way.
Mhm.
Try to find a way.
I guess you know us, huh, Abraham?
I just want to make sure not to freak out my staff.
Yeah, and then he's right too, because there's some of the departments that haven't got together with us, so there's still chances.
All right, I appreciate that for entertaining my comment there. So tonight, we're discussing more stability, I think, to the budget here going forward for the next few years. This is an extension request for the CRNR franchise agreement. So what I will do is I'll give you some history on where we've done, what's included with the current agreement, and why the need for extension, or why the request for the extension. We do have CRNR personnel and staff members and the vice president here for CRNR on the audience. So if you have some specific program questions for CRNR, they're available to answer questions as well.
There you go.
So
Hold on, I think there's
Still
screens
blank.
are on blank.
Yeah,
Still
at
blank.
present, it's not showing, so we're just.
Sorry, I was trying to
get
do it
on.
secretly, but.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right. So as you know, CRNR is our city solid waste hauler. They've been servicing here the city of Centro since 2007. And in April of 2022, we did an amended and restated contract with CRNR. And that's just a very short way of saying about a year's effort of working with HF&H consultants, who are a major firm specializing in solid waste, not only hired by us, but hired in many times by the state itself to recycle, to look at state regulations. We did a cost of service analysis at that time. We did basically an overhaul of the contract to be state of the art to the current regulations from the state, and making sure that the rates and the cost of service that CRNR was proposing at the time was correct, and they were not overcharging us, and they were delivering the services. The contract, when we did the restated agreement in 2022, did not extend the expiration date of June 30, 2027. It kept it the same at that date. And by contract, the date is not set in stone. The contract does allow for 5-year extensions. The 5-year extensions need to be done quite a bit of time before that deadline to allow the city, should they want to renegotiate or go out for different hauler time. That process takes 1.5 to 2 years because of the magnitude of changing haulers. So we're in that window right now where we can consider adding additional time to the contract in 5-year increments. So just to give you an update of or a background of what CRNR does, this is on our city website. We have a page dedicated specifically to trash and recycle. I'm going to try to click the link. That worked. So we have quite a bit of information for the residents. So if you have any questions on the current program for CRNR or the services offered by the city, you can go to this website, Public Works Trash and Recycling. And you can find all kinds of information, such as phone numbers, what they do for customer support, the collection schedule, business recycling tips, and so forth. A lot of it is mandated by the state and what we have to provide. But a lot of it is specific to us, like curbside pickup or recycling pickup. Obviously, as you might know, CRNR will go to your home and pick up the trash for like one-time bulky items from your front door. There's information for commercial recycling, the rates, and what to do with electronic waste and so forth. A lot of information for businesses, and we have added interactive GIS at the city for the residents to find out when the trash is picked up in their location. A map comes up. I'm just going to choose a random location here. I'm going to choose this pink area, so it comes on Friday. And if you click on the blue line here, the street sweeping is the first and third week on the Monday of each month. So just information for the public. So that's just general information so that we can share it and make sure that the public is aware of the services that are being provided. Let's close that out and try to go back to the presentation here. Actually, it worked. Now that we know the background, a little bit of where we're at, we have received a letter in January from CRNR requesting to exercise that term extension. They're actually asking for a 10-year extension. And this is because they're gearing up to build a brand new facility that I'll show in a couple slides forward. along Ross and Dogwood on the southeast quadrant of the city. Right now is industrial in nature. This would be bringing in new infrastructure to that area. So where we reviewed, as part of our staff review of the extension request, we consider the current performance, the rates as compared to surrounding agencies, existing contract terms and safeguards, and the benefits of the proposed CRNR project to the city, right? So with that, I'll go through one by one. In terms of the current performance, we just want to point out that we did complete at the city not only the 2022 audit or restated contract, but we just completed in this January an internal review of finances. Is CRNR collecting the proper rates? Are we receiving the proper franchise fees? How are the complaints going? All that came in fine. No significant findings were identified. So CRNR is doing good. For this, we hired HF&H consultants to do that. And just to point out, it didn't cost the city because as part of CRNR's contract, there's a payback for our expense on that audit. We constantly monitor any complaints on trash service and street sweeping, where we have a minimum of complaints. A lot of the time is just pointing them to the website or getting information, or if there's anything, we can reach out to a CRNR and the matter is addressed. We looked at other rates in other agencies. This is some information that we were able to compile. Comparing rates is not apples to apples. It's not fair to CRNR or Republic, which is the biggest competitor here for cities, because every agency has different services, perhaps, or cost of services, distances to travel. But it's always good to show as a rough guide. How are we looking compared to other agencies surrounding us, right? So the first line that you'll see is the residential. It's a 3-card set. That's your black, blue, green bins out in your residential setting. So for us right now, our monthly rate is $24.53, and you can see Holville, Haber, Calipatra, and Westmoreland. They're all in the same range as us, right? Some of them are actually higher. And then Republics here, Imperial, Brawley, and Calexico for the rates, which were a little higher. I did not obtain the information in Imperial and Brawley. That's why those are blank, but I do have the ones in Calexico because I live there and I see the bill. So I was able to transfer the information. So that's as it compares to us, and you can see that on the Republic side, they're a little higher as well. So regarding contract terms and safeguards, as I mentioned, we went through a very lengthy exercise in 2022 of looking at the rates of cost of service for CRNR, as well as the agreement, which was completely overhauled in 2022. It's one major thing that we have on the safeguards here and the stability is that this contract here in El Centro is capped for the residents at a maximum of 4% per year increase. It can be less based on consumer price indexes, and there's a formula to calculate this number. Every year, and I will be coming back in about a month or two to council to ask for call it the routine annual rate increase. It's based on a built-in multiplier for, as I mentioned, CPIs. Comes with a number. This year, numbers has been received by CRNR by the city, and is being reviewed by the city, and will come back to council for that approval request in a couple months. And it's going to be under that 4%. So very likely. But if it was, let's say if inflation, the CPI came in at 6%, the ceiling is 4%. So we would be coming to council and saying the numbers came out at 6%, but we're only requesting a 4%. So that brings stability on the contract going forward, and for the residents on knowing what to expect. And again, I mentioned about the audits and CRR audits that we perform, and many of them are actually covered by the contract itself. Then we also consider the project that they're proposing, and so they're proposing a big transfer station, and this would be on Ross. So looking at this would be Ross going in this way, and Dogwood is over here. For reference, the new Maverick gas station is in that corner right there. So to access the site, you would come from Ross, go east, and there'll be a new road being built along this east edge of the property, and then the developed site would be here. And just the blow up is here, just to reiterate. So this would be Ross. We would be driving to this new road and into the facility. It's an enclosed facility. What a transfer station is when CRNR or the hauler gets their trash, they go inside of this big warehouse looking building. It's a lot fancier than a warehouse. It basically looks like an office building. The trash is sorted out for the recycles. And this all happens indoors, so there's no orders or anything like that. It's all indoors. We have 2 of these in Centro with no complaints. This all happens indoors, and then it's transferred out to the disposal site that they have in Yuma. This is a facility that's being proposed. What's nice about this project is that builds this new roadway on the east end. Doesn't have a name because being this area of the city, there's actually no city street that lines up either north or south of this area. So CRNR can propose a name. Or you can suggest something for CRNR's consideration. I mean, just through some, just for fun, Foundry Drive, Innovation Parkway, Green Tech Way, Renewal Drive, EcoVista Drive. We can come up with something. I hear Dean chuckling. It can be Dean Way. I don't know. All right. But it's their property, so they get naming rights. And this will become the go for any street going north and south eventually that lines up for consistency. Same as First Street goes, same all throughout the city, second, third, and so forth, right? This area, if you might recall, is pretty landlocked in terms of roadways right now. So they would be building this, like I mentioned, as well as the frontage for Arlington here. So the CRNR actually owns a property to the south, so they could develop that in the future as well. As part of the project, they'll be building a natural gas station to power their fleet eventually with natural gas. Right now, they're powering their fleet with diesel, as there's no real reliable source of natural gas in the valley. So we saw the 10-year extension. Right now, we're recommending, the resolution presented before you is actually recommending the 5-year extension. And the second 5-year that they're requesting would be subject to them actually completing the facility that they're proposing, as well as satisfactory contract performance, right? So should the facility not be completed, as I mentioned, which is a big positive here for the area, and that 5-year extension will come back and say, hey, you know what? Let's talk about this further. So with that, our staff recommendation is to approve the resolution as presented, or provide staff alternate direction. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I have one question.
Yes.
The natural gas trucks, is that also going to be like EV, like electric trucks, or in the future, or is that a category that's not in the state's radar?
That's a great question, actually, and it's highly in flux at this point because of not only the state but the federal guidelines. A lot of the requirements for clean fleet regulations have been scaled back recently, and at this point, the technology is not there for electric garbage trucks of any magnitude. Maybe for local small here things,
right?
But natural gas would be a cleaner burning use than diesel. I'm not sure if CRNR would like to add anything on electrification plans. If they can answer. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Any electrification?
Sure. Good evening, Madam Interim Mayor and Council members. My name is Dean Ruffridge. I'm a Senior Vice President at CRNR. And I think you know my team here in El Centro. Victor Carrillo is with us tonight, Mr. Ochoa, and Mr. Gray. So to answer your question about natural gas, our intention is to convert our full fleet to natural gas in the future. I'll give you a scenario that happened to me just this last week. And it's kind of funny because I was going over it with my contractor today that I hope to choose. And the Southern California Gas Company put in a new line east of our new street that we're going to build. And guess what? the line isn't big enough to handle our trucks. So we've made a request to the PUC in Sacramento, and we've also sent a formal letter to the governor asking them to replace that line or add to that line so that we can provide natural gas trucks to the city of El Centro. Now, one of the things we discussed today with our contractor was if that natural gas line is not available by the time we need it, we'll continue with our diesel vehicles, but they will sleeve, put a big pipe underneath the street for a gas line, so we don't have to tear that street up in the future to put in a new gas line. That's one thing I want to do now because I hate tearing up streets and having a saw cut and bumps and everything else. But what this facility will service is not only El Centro, but we have long-term contracts, if you don't already know, with a number of other cities here in Imperial County. Besides the county of Imperial, we have Heber, we have contracts with Holtville, Westmoreland, Calipatria. Did I hit them all? We have 5 other cities that we service here out of that facility. So all of our men and women that work for us in El Centro, in fact, the vast majority live right here in El Centro. Great people. I mean, they're there every day. And, you know, they'll work 10-hour days, not a problem. And if they have to work more, they will. And when COVID was going on, a lot of you were here, and we had so many people out sick. Any week we'd have 20 or 25% of our employees out sick. And these other employees worked 10, 12, 15 hours a day to pick up the trash. So we're excited about our new facility. Been planning this for 10 years. We operate now on East Main Street. We have a 10-acre site there. We have a 5-acre site in Dogwood. Both of those we will consolidate into our new site. We'll have a consolidated site. We own a number of pieces of property here in El Centro that we've tried to build on in the past, and either we didn't have access or we couldn't get cooperation from the local utility, or there was always some excuse or some problem, but we are there. We are in the plan check with your city right now. Engineering department has approved our offsite improvements. We're ready to start construction on that right away. We're in the second plan check with your building department, and I think that's being plan checked in San Diego, if I remember hearing right. And we hope to be out of that within the next couple of weeks. So we're ready to go, and I can't wait. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to.
Is this going to be your only yard in the valley?
Yes, in
Or
fact,
just the main yard?
this will be our only yard in the valley, and I have a couple of pieces of property right here in Central. El Centro will be happy to put on the market. Yes, you're right.
Since you're going to build from the ground up, tell us like what's going to be the advantage of from what you're operating out of now? From
Well,
you know, you're going to design this for to be the most efficient. What's going to change that's going to make it so much better?
Great question. Currently, we have 2 facilities, one on Main Street, which is permitted only for 99 tons a day for transfer by state law. Okay. We have a second facility on Dogwood. It's a transfer station for 150 tons a day. So right now we do about 200 tons a day between 2 facilities. We have 2 operations managers. We have 2 crane operators. We have 2 of everything. Okay. We will have, this facility will be permitted for somewhere, depending on what the Imperial County Health Department permits. It'll be permitted for somewhere between 350 and 500 tons a day. Okay. The floor is actually large enough to do 900 to 1,000 tons a day. We're building for a 20-year plan. And that's what CR&R does. We built a huge facility in the city of Paris recently. We have a huge facility up in Stanton. I'm the project manager also for a large facility in San Juan Capistrano. It is twice the size of this one. And both San Juan Capistrano and San Clemente, which are the 2 main cities in South County of Orange County, wanted this facility, and both of them granted us 20-year contracts just so we could amortize the development and get our funding. And our main reason for asking for the 10 years, or the 5 and 5, if you will, which is allowed under the contract, is for funding. I don't have the $20 million to go out and just, you know, build this facility tomorrow. I need to get financing, and banks look, well, how long is your contract? Okay. How long were you guaranteed revenues? So that's the main reason for my question. I mean, for my letter. Thank you.
Colleagues, any other?
Maybe another small issue for you, I mean, with the global big yard like this, but I'm a homeowner. I live in El Centro, and just on my little spot, I have like 9 trees. And so I trim them all. And so the only time that I can take branches into, the yard is Saturday morning.
Right,
It's the only opening.
right.
Will this be any different? Will there be any accommodation for like citizens here to be able to, bringing things, larger things that are not going to fit in the carts?
Great question. Currently, under our current TPR with the county health department, we're allowed Saturday mornings for 4 hours to have self-haul come in. They come in at no charge. Our intention is to, with our new TPR with the county, is change that to allow additional hours or additional days. But that would not be permitted until the county and the state, Cal Recycle in Sacramento, analyzes our plans to see, will there be a problem? Will there be a lineup of cars out the gate? Will there be a traffic issue? And so forth and so forth. So are we going to? I can't say yes. I can't say no. We don't know. But right now we are permitted 4 hours on Saturday for self-haul.
And that's regulated by Sacramento.
Well, it's regulated by the local health department.
Oh.
But through Sacramento, yes.
It makes it difficult because like someone has their trees trimmed or something like that to sort of pay twice because they're paying CR&R for their services, but then those folks don't go to your facility, they go to Republic or landfill and they have to pay for, to dump it there. So I just wish there was something better for us, since you're building from ground up. I know it's not in your control to, to make things, but if there's some way to make it, enhance it so that the health department says, oh, this is going to work out great for folks and it's not going to be a problem. There's going to be a separate area or whatever that will work. That would be great.
You bring up a good point, and this is the gentleman right here that's going to probably negotiate that with
Oh,
you in the near
great.
future. Okay.
Okay.
He's your man.
Okay.
I see it coming already.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you, but we do have a blue slip. Peter Sternberg, you would like to come and talk, please?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, member of the council. My name is Peter Sternberg, and I'm the General Manager for Public Services here in Imperial County as well as in Yuma County. And I've been in this role for 13 years, so I remember 10 years ago when the CR&R approached the city and asked for a 10-year extension so they can build a transfer station, right? And here we are 10 years later, and they're asking again for another 10-year extension so they can build a transfer station when they currently do not have a permit to even operate. And so I have to ask if this is really best for the city of El Centro. I can tell you this, we have a landfill, Republic owns the landfill, Imperial landfill. If you're on Dogwood heading to Brawley, you've probably seen it before. That landfill has 50+ years of life in it. So we can handle all the trash from the city of El Centro for a long time. And as diversion continues to increase, the life of that landfill is going to continue to increase as well. Additionally, we process our recycling here in El Centro. So we have our facility on Highland Avenue. And all the recycling we collect from the 3 franchises we have here, which is Brawley, Imperial, and Cluxco, it's processed here in El Centro. Additionally, we take the recycling we collect in Yuma County and bring it out here and process that separately. And so you have to ask, if California has CRV value on their recycling, why would you want to take that to Arizona? It doesn't seem to make sense. And so I have to ask the question, is this 10-year extension best for the city of El Centro? Or is this 10-year extension best for CR&R for their business plan and to increase the value of their company? One other item, probably 2 years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, I came to a council meeting here and there was a number of residents who were very upset about the service they were receiving from CR&R. They were talking about trash not being picked up for several days and they weren't sure when the trucks were going to show up. There was oil being leaked in the streets. The trucks were in disrepair. And several residents spoke about how the truck would come down the street dump the trash, and then grab the recycling and dump it in the same truck. And so it just doesn't seem right that the city would want to extend an agreement. And that evening, the executives from CR&R talked about COVID and how that prevented them from maintaining their trucks and having the personnel. And you heard a little bit of it tonight. I can tell you this, for public services, we didn't miss a pickup. We serviced every one of our cities without delay. We invested in our equipment. We invested in our maintenance. If you see our trucks around town, take a look at them. We take very much pride in how we service our vehicles and take care of our employees. And so there's a reason we didn't miss any collections, and we were right on time. So I'd ask again, is this really what's best for the city of El Centro? I'd ask you to consider tabling this item, because I don't think it is. Thank you. Now I'll answer any questions if you had on the slides about Republic.
You know, well, the gentleman from CR&R mentioned, you know, that they're changing their fleet over to gas. I mean, what are your plans for the future in terms of your truck fleet?
So welcome to come by our facility. I'd love to show you where we're installing our new EV trucks, the ones that I guess they can't figure out how to use. We have a long-term agreement with several manufacturers, and we've been rolling out EV trucks. So we have them in several of our cities. We realize in California, that is the future. We're going to have to go that way. There may be a temporary hold on it, but eventually that's where we're going to end up. So we have a exclusive agreement, and we have EV trucks coming in primarily to start. It's going to be the residential trucks, because we know the amount of miles they drive every day. We know what the demand is going to be, and we'll be able to charge those trucks in the evening, so they'll be ready to run all day. So we actually have EVs, and we started the installation already. We didn't ask our cities for extensions yet, right? We put the money up first because we realized we got to show we're serious about our investments instead of asking the city to give us the extension before we begin these projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to add, so the comment right now was regarding the meeting that was held that approved that 2022 contract restated agreement. And no questions on Republic. I think both firms are great firms. I'm not gonna say anything negative on Republic or any of the or CR&R. I can talk about CR&R and our experience, and some of the comments that were raised were valid. And at that point in time, did raise citizen concerns. As we stated in that council meeting, however, all of those were be addressed, and they were addressed. As I mentioned today, any future and current sweeping or trash pickups or delivery dates, we have no cost on those anymore. That has all been addressed. Several of the vehicles that were discussed about leaking oil and mechanical, a lot of those vehicles were replaced, and I'm sure Dean can speak to that for CR&R. So those have been addressed. And we're not seeing that going forward. So we have now on our street sweeper, we have they're GPS enabled. So we go in on the website and make sure that they're covering the streets they're supposed to be covering on the day they're supposed to be covering. So we do that internal check going forward. It's something that's a reason why I showed a map earlier today, because that's how we base it, right? So we compare based on what we told the public versus where they're at. So that's being addressed. And regarding the 10 years, as I mentioned, this is a 5-year, and it's got the resolution. You'll see that we're asking CR&R to finish it by not 2032, or it's actually by 2028, I believe. So in about 2.5 to 3 years, it needs to be completed. We expect it to be completed a lot earlier than that because they're already in building permit. We're in constant communication with them. There's a permits. And the reason on the delays, as Ben didn't elaborate, but they had to purchase a whole other property to be able to build it, because the property they had originally, as was mentioned, was not being able to service by access or utilities. So now, with the purchase of the new property, the project is not viable, and that's where they're moving forward. And Dean can expand on that extension. But you're right, the first extension that was mentioned, there was an extension that was done earlier that added time to the contract. As part of that extension, the city obtain street sweeping at no additional cost to the residents at that point, which at that time was not offered. So the city owned our own street sweeper, and with that extension also came the RNR doing the street sweeping for the cities, which resulted in cost saving. Since then, a lot of agencies, including Republic agencies, have followed similar programs and asked their haulers to do the sweeping as part of their system. So we've been spearheading that process like that. I'm glad that it's moving along correctly and being done by our cities. But right now, we're asking for a 5-year. But basically, if CRNR continues and good, completes the work and continues performing satisfactorily, then the 5 years we'll be discussing, not unreasonably withheld from them. And yeah,
Abram,
yes.
this lot that's on the south side of Ross, is that city limits?
No. So let's bring that.
There's really not going to be revenue. Is there consideration of annexing that area?
I'm sorry, it
Down
is
the-
city limits.
Down the road?
It is city.
Yes. So sorry,
It is.
answer the question in reverse. So yes,
Thank
it
you.
is city limits. So our city limits, I believe, if I remember correct, goes to about where they're at.
Uh-huh.
And it continues going south. We
Got
have
it.
Ivy Plaza, Ivy Commons,
Yes.
Ivy Mall. So yes, if we continue going there.
Thank you.
But right now,
I
the
s-
road that's being added is this road here
Yes,
and partially Arlington here.
right.
This rectangle that I'm going at is also owned by CRNR. That was the original project site. When that didn't work out, they bought the one on the north where they're actually building right now or getting ready to build.
Thank you. Well, in other words, I see this as like an investment in our city limits. In other words, that's what I'm bringing out,
It's the
that this is going to
added
be a large
benefit.
investment.
It's the added benefit to the city that their investments in CRNR or whatever developer was to develop this area could be a catalyst. We're seeing that similar with Maverick, where that corner was blighted, if you want to say that. And now with Maverick coming in, it's adding attention to that area, right? So the hope is that this project will add attention to this area and bring in more industrial or other manufacturing areas.
Mhm. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Abraham. Okay, now I look to my colleagues for a motion and a second to approve the resolution number 2515.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Because, Mr. Campos, I'm just not comfortable with that second extension, the proposed second extension. This is, I do recall that we've had this conversation before in terms of this new waste transfer facility, but, I know with any project, funding is critical, but, this has been in the talks for a little while now, it's just like, and so, I'm just not, I'm not comfortable with moving forward with the second extension, okay, and making it into a 10-year.
And completely valid point. It's not a
Mhm.
10-year extension that's been
No, it
approved
isn't.
tonight.
I know, I understand that it's in two parts,
Yes.
Even with the first one, until we see some action, does it have to be in 5-year increments or can it be less?
The contract clause reads 5-year increments as approved, the current contract.
So our last one was 5-year contract. We're coming up to the end of a 5-year contract in 27.
There was one extension done, and I want to say in around 2000, I'm drawing a blank here, but there was one prior extension that extended the agreement to the current extension. So there's
More than 5 years.
more than 5 years.
Got it.
So to the 2027 date,
Okay.
2017 perhaps, or
In fairness, the contract was completely redone,
Mhm.
beginning in 2022 for an extended period of time.
It's basically a new
A
contract.
relatively large amount of expense. It was approved in 2022. And using HF&H, the contract was substantially written for a variety of reasons. One was to meet the new and varied requirements of state law, and the other was to bring the contract up to date. So in fairness, I don't think that I would consider that an extension. It was the beginning of a revised agreement.
Yeah.
Because its provisions are completely different.
And that 2022 did not extend the original 2027 date as the original agreement. It kept the original agreement end date plus whatever extension was done prior to the restated, but kept it at the 2022. But it's basically a brand new contract.
So what we're simply asking, what we're being asked tonight is a 5-year contract.
5-year.
Yeah.
And with the clause that should they complete the manifestation by the date and the resolution, as well as satisfactory performance, the city will not unreasonably withhold another 5 years. There would need to be a cost.
So
for the second.
how tied in are we then into the second 5 years is the question, what you just said?
So if they complete their work and their performance satisfactory, or basically the second extension will not be unreasonably withheld. So we would need to find a reason why not to approve that.
Mhm.
Basically, they're not meeting their standard.
Yeah.
There's missed pickups. There's a reason, right? But if they're doing a good job and the cost is good and the facility is working out right, so likely is we wouldn't have a need to deny. That's
But
what-
for now, it's just a 5-year contract that we're talking about.
It's a 5-year
5-year
extension
extension.
of the
Extension.
revised contract.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
so you're correct.
Thank you. Okay, got it. The existing contract, a 5-year
So you're
extension.
not comfortable with the 5-year extension, Councilmember?
No, I'm not.
I
And
have-
I'm wondering, were there any other, maybe proposals for service from like Republic, for example, or any other company that?
That's what the 2022 amended agreement basically did. We contracted with HFNH to see if it would be worthwhile, let's say, doing that RFP financially. And because yes, we could spend close to $1 million in a request for proposals and to go in and do a new hauler. It's a huge undertaking to replace or switch haulers. And you can have both haulers here and they would be happy to do it. It's a huge expense. And the benefit, that's why I showed the benefit of would it be worth it for us based on the information we know today. So the rates are there for your consideration. We know the landfill rates for locally here for Republic, if I remember correctly, are higher than the ones at Yuma. So I do not expect the savings. If anything, it would be very similar. And it's just basically changing logos for the public. But in terms of facilities, they both have great facilities. I'm not going to speak, like I mentioned, negative about Republic. They do a fantastic job as well for their cities. But for us, the question is, do we want to go through that process of spending that significant amount? Just the restated contract was well over $100,000 to go through that, and that was just revamping the cost. That was our cost, not the cost for that the hauler had to put in to do that process. So it's a decision we have to do. If your consideration is to do an RFP, we would need to basically by December tell CRNR we're not interested in renewing. We need to, by contract, by this December, we need to let CRNR know we don't want to renew. We want to explore any RFP, and basically we have about 2 years, so that on July 1, 2027, the day after it expires, the new hauler is already picking up the trash. It's quite an undertaking. It can be done, but it's a decision that is it beneficial to the city to do that, or are we happy with the service that we're getting and the cost that we're being charged and the ceilings that we have? And I think that's a benefit. Those ceilings are not offered by
What was that?
the cost of service ceiling that we have under our contract.
Seating.
So no more than 4% increase per year.
Oh, you
And
mean the ceiling? Oh, okay.
the cost
Yeah.
ceiling.
Okay.
So that's a benefit.
Abraham, I have a question, or maybe the gentleman wants to, or maybe you can. If there was, I'm saying a good faith effort that they stated they were going to make a facility back then, where are we at now to make sure that that's adhered to? Is that part of not going over 5 years, or because I think that's something that's very important.
Yes, and Dean can come up to the project and say, but as mentioned, the plans have been reviewed, and they're building permit. I believe they're opening bids at this point, and not sure if we can discuss any of that.
And I'll throw my other question in there too. When you stated about the tenure being for funding purposes, how much of a reality is the granting of funding for you to go forward with this to make sure that this comes to fruition?
There aren't any grant funds. It's all private money.
Okay.
So private institutions want a guarantee of revenue. Okay. And like I said, the other project that I'm doing in San Juan Capistrano, we have 20-year commitments from those cities.
Mhm.
This is a smaller project, so I was asking for a 10-year commitment, and our bank was okay with that.
And I'm sorry, but your bank, so are you saying your bank is okay with it?
Our bank is okay with the
you have
language
funding already?
as it's written, yes. 10 years ago, we had a project proposed just south of this property. We own 12.9 acres from Dogwood all the way east. We bought that cash. That was proposed for our transfer station and building, new building. That project was dead in the water with the local utility. They would not allow us to cross Dogwood, that B channel, that water channel.
Mhm.
They'd allow us to do it, but just to cross that was 3 times the cost of 12 acres. It was unbelievable. We could not do it. And in talking with the engineering department, they'd rather us not bring our trucks out on Dogwood anyway, because it's a busy road.
Mm-hmm.
Ross was likely the next street to use, because we have our zoning there. We have our general plan amendment. It's permitted by the general plan, it's permitted by the current zoning for our use. We don't have to ask for a conditional use permit, a special use permit. We just get a building permit from the city. And that's what we're in for right now. So we have that 12.9 acres that's zoned, but I have no access to it. Now, what happens when I build on this 9 acres? We build that easterly street, and guess where it dead ends? Right into our 12.9 acres. Guess what now becomes developable in this city? Another 13 acres of industrial property, because it has access. And that's been sitting idle, dead forever.
Mhm. Okay. So you're in the process already. I know you said already, but I just want to make sure you're in the process to get your permits. You're already ready to go.
Yes.
And so we'll be seeing this building as soon as all these things are approved.
Yes, very shortly. Actually, I was getting a timetable from the general contractor today, and he hopes to be doing offsets within 60 days. That's how quick they're all done. The plans are all finished.
And so you're also hoping to get natural gas eventually piped in, and you'll build your own filling stations
That's
on
the
site.
plans. The CNG fueling station is on the plans, yes.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, that's speak to us a little bit about how clean natural gas is.
Well, we've experimented with electric EV vehicles like Republic has. And again, this is a very competitive industry, and I appreciate this gentleman being here tonight. We have electric vehicles in some of our cities in Orange County, and they're not perfected. We run 12-hour routes with our residential trucks. That truck will do 8. I'm sorry, that truck does 3 hours. So 8 hours of the day, that truck is sitting someplace not being used. So you need 3 trucks to replace a natural gas truck.
Yeah.
And the electric trucks are running close to 500,000 apiece. Our natural gas trucks are running about 350. Our diesel trucks are running about 250. So when the state went from diesel to natural gas, our CapEx went up 100 grand per truck. If they go to electric, and I don't see it happening, I don't see Governor Newsom going that way. If he does, guess who's going to be paying that $500,000?
Yes, right.
The residents are. I mean, it's an unbelievable price.
Yes. Less service and more time and
the
more
other thing
expensive, more
too,
cost.
which is important on the electrical vehicles, they weigh tremendous amount of weight tonnage. The batteries are huge. And so the infrastructure, the wear and tear on your infrastructure, your roads, right now we have a 18,000 pound front axle. Your fire trucks have 20,000. These have 24,000 pounds in the front axle. Can you imagine how your streets in the 120 degree are going to hold up
Yes.
with that heavy weight.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a lot of things to consider. Thank you for the questions.
Well, just one more question. So if, let's say we have buses that would like to run on natural gas.
Yes.
Can we fill them there?
At our facility?
Yeah.
There is a public fueling station here in El Centro.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
found out
work.
today.
Doesn't work.
Our fueling will be a slow fuel. So
Oh,
it'll
okay.
fuel overnight. It'll
All right,
not
all
be
right, all
boom.
right.
So
Okay.
the driver comes in, parks his truck, hooks that little hose up,
Yes.
and it fuels all
Yeah,
night long.
right.
Technology, like I mentioned, maybe the future, is my personal opinion, is it might not be batteries, it might be hydrogen. And so that's being developed. So just hydrogen production, it's from electricity, that's obviously lighter than batteries. And maybe that's the next step for larger equipment, or maybe buses. I think that's kind of where the technology might be going. I see this as a very fluid technology dynamic. We're going to zero emissions eventually. California is leading the way as well. So I see other fuels, maybe not batteries, for this type of equipment.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we can either give a motion, or we can discuss tabling it until our next city council meeting and giving us time to think about it.
I myself believe that this is a great investment in our city. And I don't believe that electric, I believe is what Abraham's saying, eventually is not going to be sustainable. We will end up going to hydrogen, but then you have to have hydrogen source, and we don't have that. So I believe this is really not a bad option at all. We're only being asked for 5 years, and I, again, think this is going to be a very big investment in our city. So I would move that we accept the resolution of the 5-year addition to this contract.
Okay, I'll make a second.
Just to confirm with our city attorney, that's how the resolution is written, and are there any changes needed to the resolution?
No.
Motion passes with 3 yes and 1 no.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to a discussion about change makers, but I'm going to excuse myself as being the CEO of Change Makers, and I'm going to hand things over to Councilmember Marroquin, and I will be back.
By my report.
All right, colleagues. I don't hear the door. Is she going out?
Up for refreshments.
Staff report. What page would the staff report be? 329. I can see that. 329 is the page there.
No,
we're still working on the staff
We're going to go
report.
outside. We're waiting for you to exit.
Yes.
You know what, just for,
There you go.
yeah, you can.
You found that?
I got it. 329, page 329.
Yeah, they can.
Now I've lost mine. I've lost my screen. Don't worry about it. I got this.
Are we?
Do you have more online than you have on paper?
This is
Okay, that's fine.
Are you waiting for?
quorum.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Okay, are we good? Alrighty, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to item number 14, discussion and any necessary action regarding the community sponsorship request from Changemakers. And we have a presentation by Mr. Daniel Paramo, our interim city manager.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep it brief. I know. Anyway, we did receive a request from the Changemakers, which is a local grassroots organization focused on community empowerment through educational, creative, and safe athletic activities for youth. The request that was made is actually for the second annual 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Is there someone here representing?
Yes.
Did you want to have them come
Yes,
up?
I think it's Pastor King.
Okay.
You're going to speak on this item?
Good evening, council members and fellow citizens of El Centro. I'm Pastor Marco King, and I'm one of the members of the Changemakers organization. Changemakers actually came together because we recognize the fact that we have a lot of youth, and I'm not from the Imperial Valley. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I came here with the military and just decided to stay. That's a whole nother story. But when I got here,
I'm glad you like our community that
yeah, well,
much.
yeah, that's what, fell in love with a nice, safe community and just stayed here. But when I got here, being a pastor and dealing with youth and things like that, I got to meet some families. I'm gonna ask Hilton to come up with me real quick, but we got to meet with some families who had never been to San Diego. I took a group of kids to Dave and Buster's, and the first comments from many of them were, we've never been to San Diego before, which blew my mind because I go everywhere. And, they would say things like, oh yeah, the farthest we've been is Brawley, and I was like, well, wow, that's crazy because I go to Brawley for donuts, So it was just one of those things that stood out to me. And talking with some of these families, they can't afford to go on some of these trips. And what our end goal is to take a group of children, some that don't have the support, the financial support they would need, up to things like we want to do up in Anaheim where you have Knott's Berry Farm, and we want to try to do some of these other parks and recreational parks that's up there to let our children here in the El Centro area and even the Imperial Valley area get to see some things that they normally wouldn't be able to see because their families can't afford it. So we started off by doing the 3-on-3 basketball tournament last year, which is in corporation and honoring the 104th historical marking of the Black Wall Street massacre. So we have the 3-on-3 basketball tournament that we do at the community center here on the east side. And we just want to partner or have sponsorship from the city. If you come in with us so we can start raising those funds to get this trip to happen. And we want this to become, this will be our second one, the second 3-on-3 basketball tournament, but we're building so we can get the funds to take the children somewhere, hopefully by the end of the year. And if we don't have all the funds that we need, we'll be pressing for the beginning timeframe somewhere of next year of 2026. But our end goal is to get our children not out of the valley, but to get them to see other things other than the valley so they have a reason to keep pushing on, if that makes sense to anybody. Any questions or anything? I may not explain that.
No,
Okay.
you were pretty clear.
So we do have various levels of sponsorship on here, from level 1 all the way to a title sponsorship, which is level 150 all the way to 1,000. I know the application itself, they had requested 500, and we currently do have $1,000 available in our sponsorship fund, just as an FYI. So.
Colleagues, any suggestions for the sponsorship level?
I would suggest the 500.
I would agree. Yes, I'm good with that. We have 500 left after that.
That would be a level 4.
Make it through
Yes, and
June.
And so, I also agree with the dollar amount. So can I get a motion then to?
Yes, I'd move that we do the $500 level grant for the recommendation.
Sponsorship.
Level 4, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, all ready?
I don't think my screen is able to vote. Can I vote on?
No, it has to be yours. No, that was bad.
I can do it on here, so you're,
All right.
yours
Yes.
is a yes?
I'm good. Yes, I'm yes.
Okay, motion passes 3 with 1 abstain.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
gentlemen.
I go get her.
Yeah.
I'll go get her.
Thank you for your patience. I am totally lost. All right.
Okay.
We have
She's
next
coming
one.
in.
What's next? Okay. This letter right here, right?
Hey.
Did you ask for that one?
Oi.
And support?
Thank you, Councilmember Matakin.
Oh, sorry, name on there.
And now we go to the task force reports.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, we're adding 2 letters to the legislative item. So we need a motion and a second to add those letters.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion and a second to add the 2 letters to the legislative?
I motion to approve.
A second.
This would be to add the letters to the.
Yes.
To add, I'm sorry.
Add the
Yes.
letters, yeah.
Yes,
To
that's what I
the
said.
agenda.
Yes, to add the letters.
Yes. Do we voice vote or?
Yes, please, can you voice vote? Uh-huh. So
Oh,
that
this is
would
just to
be
add.
Councilmember Allen,
Yes.
Councilmember Camarena,
Yes.
Councilmember Marroquin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter.
Yes,
Motion passes 4-0.
thank you. Now we will move on to the task force.
No, the letters
That's
have
just
to be
to add the
explained, I'm
items. Now
sorry.
now he
I'm
has to.
sorry, I'm trying to get us out, I guess you see it.
So they do have a copy of the letter, right?
Good
try.
I'm
Copies of the
sorry.
Okay, I don't know, do you have copies of the letters or were you?
I know that they were in the packet.
Okay. The first one was the letter in support SB 635 status, which is the homelessness, civil and criminal penalties. It's a notice of opposition that was requested of us, and it's what it does is respectfully opposes SB 634, which would prohibit local jurisdictions from adopting or enforcing ordinances to address homelessness. And while we recognize the bill's intent, SB 634 would severely limit cities' ability to respond to the growing homelessness crisis in communities across California. Do you need the whole thing read?
No, but
Yeah.
we also need a motion and a second to adopt it.
Yeah, but,
Do
okay, so was it to prohibit
Notice it.
encampment? Is that the one?
Yeah, I can keep reading some more of the,
It basically prohibits a city which is proceeding under grants pass from gathering and storing homeless materials. It restricts the ability to carry out what the United States Supreme Court said in grants pass. So
it's better said by the attorney.
there is a group of California cities which are opposing it. Councilmember Ellett suggested that we join that group, and the lobbyist has indicated that if we provide this memo, the city's name and his lobbying efforts will be added to the group that's already seeking either not to have the bill proceed or to have it amended, most likely not to have it proceed.
Yes.
But that, I just want a clarification. So that doesn't hinder our ability to enforce it as a city?
Not right now, no, but this would if it passed.
If it passes.
If it passed, so that's why we're opposing it?
That's why we're
Okay.
Opposing it, yes.
I'll also add, it is contrary to the governor's stated position.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so then,
Do we do a motion one by one?
I need a motion and a second, and I'll do a roll call.
I move that we adopt this letter and send it on to Sacramento.
I will second that, please.
Are we gonna do?
Okay, Councilmember Allen,
Yes.
Councilmember Camarena,
Yes.
Councilmember Marroquin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0. And now we have a second letter.
And the second letter was requested from, it's actually from San Diego State University. And just to kind of briefly sum it up, it says, on behalf of the city of El Centro, I write to urge you to reject the governor's proposed budget cuts of 7.95% to each California State University and the University of California. They're looking at facing substantial amounts of money being cut, so they're urging it not to be approved. And that was a request that came in from San Diego State. Pass that on.
Thank you. May I get a motion and a second, please?
Could I have some clarification, Betsy? What's this letter is about? What is this again?
It's governor's, it's funding cuts.
It's 7.95% budget cut that the governor is proposing, which will impact all these state,
And UCSD.
yes. You see,
It's basically reducing funding for public.
they're asking that he not reduce it in their budget.
May I have a motion, a first and a
I'm
second?
a motion to approve.
Second, please. I'll second.
Councilmember Elliott,
I'd like to pull it off the agenda just to get a better picture of what's taking place because I'm
We
sorry.
can read the whole letter if you want. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I didn't see that letter in my packet. I'm sorry.
they weren't in the packet. They
It's
were
just added
on.
on.
Yeah, we just added them.
How
Sorry.
urgent?
They need it. Yeah, that's why we brought it up, because they need it by next Friday.
I'm going to abstain.
Councilmember Camarena,
Yes.
Councilmember Marroquin,
May I ask a question? Okay, so the proposed budget cuts by the governor, is there a specific reason, or is it just because they're trying to balance the budget, or is that it?
That I didn't get, well, I didn't get that part from them, but that's, to answer your question.
No,
yes.
and so that's the reason why they want to cut university funding?
Correct.
Gosh, it's
Yeah,
going on all over
consequences.
the place. you know,
Yeah.
So, okay, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yeses and 1 abstain.
Yes, this is gonna have some
Three.
consequences.
I'm sorry. Yes, 3 and 1 abstain.
It's just to show us apart. You're at task force reports.
Thank you. Yes, we're at task force reports. Who would like to start, please?
I'll start and I'll go quick. First of all, I really want to thank everyone that worked on the Easter egg hunt. That was amazing. I had so much fun, and also just to see all the work that everybody did, putting all the eggs in there, and we were, me and Brad, right? Is it Brad? We were guarding golden eggs from people that were going around trying to pick them all. They got wind that there were tickets in there, so we were there. But congratulations to your staff and all the hard work they did. It was amazing. And I also had the privilege of riding with El Centro PD with an officer. Officer Yu was great. He was explaining everything. And let me tell you, I did not rest. And I know he didn't. I got a break to be able to go and have lunch. But wow, it really makes a difference to be able to be there with the employee and see what they actually do every day. And so from the taking the pictures and having to upload them and send them, and it was a lot of work, let me tell you. So I had to confess that I would see him pulled over, not him specifically, but just, an officer. And I was like, look at that officer, he's on his phone. No, he's doing work, and you don't know that unless you sit with them. And it was a great experience. And so I'm going to be calling for the night shift. I think I did like 8 hours on the Dacia, something like that. And then I had a great tour with Abraham and his group. I learned so much. It really just, you guys know how I think and everything, just being able to see it and have him explain, and his staff so knowledgeable on everything. It was amazing. So it really came together for me to be able to see all that. And then with Carla and the library staff, that building and what they do in there with the staff that they have is amazing. I'm like, I don't know how they do everything, all that schedules that they have, the number of people. I saw the small area that was originally intended for story time and how it's moved out into the community room area because it's so popular and so needed for the families in that area. And I'm just so impressed by the staff everywhere. And I just want to really thank you guys that took the time to answer my questions and take me to show me step by step how it's done, because it's a lot of the stuff, like when Abraham was talking, I get it because I can picture now, what's going on and stuff. And now with Carla too, I was looking at the budget and seeing some of the things maybe not recommended and so forth, but I'm already looking, one step because I can understand. And same with El Centro PD. So I just want to thank the staff. Thank you for your patience, for taking me on the tour so that I can understand and be able to see day-to-day activities. I'd really like to expand it if possible because it helps me to be able to understand the functions of each department and also be able to see and talk with staff and just see how you guys are doing awesome. So thank you for everything that you guys do. And I'm sure I went to meetings, but I'm sure they'll talk about it. So thank you.
All right, I'll make mine really brief. So again, once again, you pulled off a great event, Adriana, and all of the team. Gus, I know you were the MC out there last Saturday. It's just like what a difference from last year when it was overcast and raining and windy and, what a difference. But, and you know what, I kind of liked it in the morning. I know that others we've had in the afternoon, so, but and still I saw a lot of the younger kids blended in when it was the older kids, time to go in. So I know a lot of people got there late, so, but anyway, I kind of forewarned them, ahead of time that you were going to have a mixture there. But anyway, but it was fun. Also attended the Autism Awareness Fair in Imperial. I know that this has been a family tradition with us, to celebrate the milestones that they've made with autism awareness and with James and all of his group out there. So they always have a successful event. And going back a little bit, I attended First Imperial Credit Union. As many of you know that I have a long history of working in financial institutions and mostly credit unions, and I worked at First Imperial Credit Union a couple of years. And so they had an anniversary celebration of their Brawley branch at their current location. And when I was working there, I was the one that set up the operations department at their original Brawley branch, so it was kind of like, I went back to my roots. And, and I also have to mention that I was at the Sun Community grand reopening of their remodeled branch as well, and I worked there for 15 years. So I told the crowd there, I felt like I was coming home, because I was there when they built that office, and I was there when they changed the name from Government Agencies Federal Credit Union to, Sun Community Federal Credit Union because the charter changed. So, it was a lot of taking me back to, some good memories with a lot of some of my former coworkers, that are still there. So that tomorrow we have the Air Show Appreciation Luncheon out at NAF, and so more things to follow. But thank you again for all the great work that you guys have always done. So thank you.
Yes. Back on Tuesday, the 1st of, I'm sorry, I think I've got March here. But anyway, we had the swearing in of two more, no, it was a police officer and a fire officer, I believe, fireman. And so two more slots filled. I believe or was it 2 police officers? I think it was 2 police officers. And one was from, he came from corrections, another one from Hopeville. So local fellows, we're very happy to see that. And that is great to see when we're filling these slots with local folks. Then on the Children's Fair on the 5th, Saturday the 5th, it was huge and it really went well. The weather was good, thank God for that. But you know, you didn't have really loud rock and roll music at a children's fair. It wasn't like that. It was really appropriate, and we're very thankful for that. And it's a lot of kids, and we were, between my wife and I, we were supporting 2 different booths at the same time, working there with kids. So we do a lot with that. Then just the 4th, just this last week, several of us attended the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes domestic violence march at Buckland Park. And that is very important. We really support that as well. We know how difficult that can be. Again, my wife works with a lot of families and many single mom families, and we deal a lot with domestic violence and just dealing with that. So we appreciate the awareness about that. And then we were able to attend the Joshua Holmes basketball tournament, raising funds for cancer families. And so I think we sponsored them at $500 our last meeting, but for them to see them out there and to really putting all that they can into raising funds and having this basketball tournament was really good. It's just that I can't remember Joshua's mom's name. Rosemary, right? Rose. So, I mean, her only lament was that she didn't have more money, couldn't raise more money to help more families because they're out there, but God bless them for what they're doing. And then, of course, we had the extravaganza was over 11,000 eggs in the park. And it was, I have to say, Gustavo was very well organized. And there weren't, as far as I could tell, no injuries, serious injuries.
Yeah.
But it was very well organized. So thank you very much for all of that. 11,000 eggs. That was great. And then just this Saturday, my wife and I went to the Autism Fair at Eager Park in El Centro. And there, well, we just heard about this diagnostic bus that's a mobile unit. I saw it there at the fair. It's the San Diego Regional Medical Center, not Medical Center, but the San Diego Regional Center has this bus that is a mobile diagnostic unit. So it's great to see all of the advances. It was a great fair and that went on with a lot of things, other things happening too at the same time. But it's a great fair, and there's been a lot of advances in helping young people with disabilities. And again, we work with those type of people. We service a lot of families in our ministry, and many single moms, and often with special needs kids. We're very thankful for all the services that they can get and all the ways that we can help them. These moms have a monumental task, so our hats are off to them, and we help them any way we can. So that was my report.
Thank you. I attended a lot of events as well. Ditto to a lot of my colleagues. I did go to Mr. Temple's ribbon cutting, accompanied by Mr. Mario over there. We had a good time. It was nice. And I do want to say thank you to our staff. You guys really put on an amazing event. And with me working with kids, I get to hear the inside. They love to see all of the eggs. They love that. I mean, they're even already talking about the aquatic center of diving for eggs. I mean, they're already planning ahead, and they just appreciate everything that you do for them. Just don't think it goes unnoticed. The kids really
Yes.
talk about it. They're still talking about it. Matter of fact, I had some today in detention because they couldn't attend some things with the career show. And they were actually, I had them writing paragraphs about different things. What are you going to do for Easter or what? And then they started talking about the Easter egg hunt in their sentences. So I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So I did want to give them a shout out for that today. But just keep doing what you guys are doing. You are appreciated. We appreciate you. And I do want to say happy Resurrection Day to everybody, because we won't see each other. Well, we probably will, but not behind the dais, we won't see you, to wish you a happy Resurrection Day before Sunday. So enjoy your time with your family, eat a lot, spend time, take pictures, make memories.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to, our Mayor Pro Tem mentions, Buena Vista Park, the ribbon cutting ceremony. Join us at 7. Who gonna be out there then? The committee setting up, huh? 9 a.m. on May 3rd for the Buena Vista Park ribbon cutting ceremony at 1010 Fieldview Avenue. Join us for this long-awaited park that has a walking track, basketball court, kids playground, and much more. More information will be released on our social media soon. I look forward to this. I've seen the park. It's really nice, really nice. Thank you to our staff for that as well. Appreciate that. Now I go to our oh
Oh,
Jesus.
no, I'm done with all that
Our
stuff.
city manager, interim city manager. I think I'm sleep talking up here now because this is the latest we done been in a long time.
Until tomorrow.
I just going to say, you're going to see your colleagues tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's okay.
No.
I love their presence.
Tomorrow.
I think you
Tomorrow,
all,
5:30.
tomorrow, 5:30. Yeah, you
Tomorrow
said
at
it.
5:30.
Yes.
Do it all again.
Can I say one thing real quick? I just wanted to, I know also to the fire department for it was a big fire that happened, and thank God everybody
Mhm.
was safe. And I know that there were some questions as to people not being notified and so forth, but we do have correct me if I'm wrong, Mario, the El Centro's mass notification system. And residents are encouraged to please sign up for that. You would have gotten a notification just like the
Alert.
earthquake.
Mhm.
And so I just want to let the public know, please go to our website and sign up for that, because the city's done a great job in having that implemented, and you'll get up-to-date news from that.
Thank you.
We actually were going to present it tonight, but
It
we
was-
said no.
I want to go home.
We saw the agenda, we said no.
So I guess you don't have a report for
Oh,
us?
you guys all said it all. You
Oh,
said it all.
Okay, well then, with that being said, it is 9:22 and this meeting is adjourned.